Well, we're good. Okay, everybody all set?
Yeah.
Okay, council, today is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. It is 6 p.m., and I will call this regular meeting of the Barre City Council to order. Councilor Manager, do you have any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Adjustment number one is to remove item 3A. We got a little excited about National EMS Week. It's not till next month, so we'll do this next month. The other is adjustment two is to move item 8F, which is the fee schedule, to the consent agenda as item 4F. I'm happy to provide, just brief the council on some of the major changes, nothing too
we have that in our
much
packet.
changed. Yep. And the third, this was at the suggestion of the mayor to move item 8H, approval of my contract, as the first item under new business.
That's because we had a original drop dead date of February 28th. And, we met a few times and we all were trying to move it along, but, damn attorneys. Sorry, Scott. Council, any objection to those adjustments?
Nope.
Okay, that's what we'll do. We will move on to visitors and communications. Anyone wishing to address the council regarding an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing it here. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. How are you? You'll need to come up here, or otherwise the microphone doesn't pick you up, if that's okay. Do you mind?
Tell you why I'm here?
Sure.
Is this my microphone?
It is.
I don't need one. Anyways.
You can sit and be comfortable. You don't have to stand.
Mayor Lozon. I'm here about closing of that bridge. I know there's quite a bit of talk about it. I've talked to a few other people. One of the reasons why I'm here, I want to get petitions started against closing that bridge. And I'm sure everybody that uses that bridge saw what happened when it did flood, and they closed that bridge down for, what was it, a week, 2 weeks? I can't remember, but it impacted all of the traffic everywhere. A lot of the traffic will be bottlenecked up by Beveridge Barren. Nobody will be able to get in and out. Those streets that you guys are asking, or whoever's asking to take a detour, is worse than where the bridge is. It's also, I think it'll drop property values. A lot of people that live there have access right there to the thruway. They have access to downtown. The school buses go all the way around, so they don't have to get caught up in that traffic. There's at least 2 stops that I know of kids getting on and off school buses. It's essential for the ambulances and fire trucks. Just having people come into the city, tourist, anybody that wants to come in here and do business, all your businesses all along the north end that are still open, there aren't many, but there are a couple that are still open, need to have access to their front areas, which will be all blocked by traffic. I'm just thinking that there's another way. I know you want to close it down because you want to widen the river. I can see you widening the river on other joints that are in that river. I'm frankly up for dredging it, because that's what they used to do in my day. They took a lot of the stone and a lot of the sediment out of these rivers. As a matter of fact, Route 100B was built from riverbed and rock that was underneath it. And I lost my train of thought there for a second. And anyways, I think it's an essential route, and I think it'll cause delays and congestion and all kinds of problems if you shut that down and remove that. And I guess that's all I have to say, except for I don't know why you can't look at deepening instead of widening where you can. I mean, everybody that's bought along the river has taken part of the river for their parking, for their playgrounds, for whatever. And it has sizably shrunk in width, but I've never seen it as high, that bed as high as it is today. So, a good rainstorm, 2 or 3 days, we're flooding. And I don't have to, and it's common sense, everybody that lives here sees it. And it's only happened just in the last 5 years? It's gotten worse. And like I said, you gotta dig down. We're just asking, like I said, I'm getting petitions, I'm gonna put them in different places down at North End. I'll be knocking door to door to get more petition people to sign. Just asking that you, think twice about closing it down and widen it somewhere else and dredge where you can.
Well, thank
That's
you.
my spiel.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I guess the first thing I would say is that we haven't made a decision. So there's a lot of folks saying that we've made a decision. We have not. What we have done is we have applied for grant funds to do not just that project, but a lot of other projects in the city. What we are doing is we're listening to the scientists who are telling us, how much the floodwaters in the north end would be reduced by removing, not only that, but the trestle, for example, which thankfully is, I think they're gearing up, they're staging up equipment as we speak. So you can do the petition by all means, but what I can absolutely promise you is there will be a series of hearings before and if we make that decision. There'll be a series of hearings. So everyone will have an opportunity to weigh in.
Okay.
I promise.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Do we need her name for the minutes?
I'm sorry.
I know her name.
I know her name too.
Bernadette's got her name.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Bern Rose?
Hi, thanks. I don't know her name. What's her name?
Sue Brissett.
Oh, thank you.
Sue
It's
Kelly.
always nice to know who our neighbors are in the community. I want to thank Amanda. Amanda just did awesome job the last couple of weekends with the workshops around flood resiliency with the barrels and with the water gardens. I was amazed. There must have been, I don't know how many people, 30 people on Saturday. So these are really things that are bringing our community together and seem to be appealing to people. So I'm very excited and hope you will continue to do similar things, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else under visitors and communications? Okay, seeing and hearing no one, council will move on to the consent agenda. We'll be approving the minutes of the meeting of April 8th, 2025. We don't have any licenses and permits other than those under Liquor and Cannabis Control Board. Volunteer appointments, we have 3. I'm going to read those names into the record. They all have the endorsement of the chair, so they won't be here for an interview. This is just a reappointment vote. Elizabeth Rude Turner is reapplying for the DRB. Abby Bloom is reapplying for the Police Advisory Committee. And Art Bombardier is reapplying for the TPW Committee. In addition, we'll be approving the allocation from the Semper Bond Trust for playground maintenance. That's the amount, in the amount of $15,000, and you did have a briefing on that in your packet. And lastly, we'll be approving the fiscal year 2026 fee schedule. Mr. Manager, I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that.
I can just give a quick summary on some of the changes. We increased just a $25 across the board increase on the interment fees at the cemeteries. There was an increase on the non-resident lot prices as well on the cemetery side. For many of these, you might have seen we had a formula to increase some of these, for example, the parking permits. And so what we did is we kept that formula. We just rounded up or down to the nearest dollar, so people were paying like a full dollar amount. Removed some obsolete fees, primarily in the fire department. We updated the cost for outside details to account for the increases in our collective bargaining agreement. So as those wages go up, the outside detail costs basically are supposed to be a pass-through. So we increased those fees as well. On the recreation side, we created a sort of going for a tiered rental fee at the turf because we're trying to get more activity in there. So we're going to try to set up some non-peak hours to encourage some more rentals there. We also created a new birthday party fee so that we can try to entice more people to do their parties there. And at the current fee, it was a little bit prohibitive for some people to do that. And Fine, I think that's pretty much, those are pretty much the main changes. The other thing on the pool, we made we removed the distinction between a Barre City child and a Barre Town child in terms of a season pass, a kid's a kid. So we just made it one flat fee for children to use the pool. So that was it.
Yes.
Thank you. Could you explain what the obsolete fees are?
Yeah, those are some, in the fire department, they're crossed out on page 51 of the packet. These are just equipment, basically equipment that we don't have. So I don't know if we were talking to the chief, we don't know if these were added at some point that we had that equipment or if they were done sort of as a catch-all. We just don't, for example, the ATVs with trailer apparatus response, we don't do that, so we just removed it.
Okay. And then a follow-up question, or another question, I should say, for the Civic Center and the recreation, the pool specifically, do those fees help cover our expenses? And how do we decide what those amounts are? How are they in comparison to other local,
Yeah.
auditorium, ice rental, that sort of
So
thing?
we're pretty competitive. We look at the fees for other similar facilities, and by and large, we are within a few dollars or within a few percents of everybody. This year, what we did on the turf was reduced because the fee for an hour was $110. And I think that was prohibitive to, perhaps people who wanted to do, an informal rental, for example, a soccer practice. And so that might have been prohibitive for that to pass on the cost to a team. And also, for example, the birthday parties, if you have a birthday party for a kid, you probably need at least an hour and a half. That was getting to $165 for a rental. That starts to price people out. So we lowered those as an effort to encourage more activity at the BOR. The rec fees, they don't, they contribute towards the cost of the Civic Center. They don't really cover it. The only place we're making money up there is the ice. So they help offset. Even the pool runs at a slight loss, very, very small loss. And we try to, for example, this year I'm proposing to lower the season pass for the child from 40 to 30. Really to maybe, if we priced anybody out, we can maybe encourage, if a couple more families are encouraged to sign up for a smaller rate, that ends up being a gain for the city, and it means that an important facility gets more use. So I think that's a good outcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You know what happens when you hit admit all. You know.
Oh, I know. But I'm ready. There's a new button.
And is there any way because we've got so I'm trying to run the meeting, we've got a thin quorum, and Counselor Stockwell was on there, and my eyes are not that good.
Yeah.
Okay, there
She's right
there
there.
she is, okay. Awesome, thank you very much. So Council, if you're inclined, the appropriate motion would be to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions?
I have,
Yes.
under the minutes for our last meeting, sorry, I'm scrolling to the other part of the agenda. Under E, for the annual town meeting warning, should the amounts for that warning be included in that language? Does that matter? I'm not sure how the minutes are, how precisely the minutes need to reflect.
Good question.
I just know we had a stickler for that when we had a scribe at school board, and so I just want to make sure that we're covering all our
It was
bases.
4E.
Yes.
Sidewalk, council approve. I think that should be, going forward, it should be attached to the minutes. It should be entered into the record.
The
So
amounts.
the entire warrant
Okay.
should be attached. So if we could do that, council knows what they approved. I'd like to bring this up next week, put it on the agenda just out of an abundance of caution, and we'll attach the warrant right to the meeting. That's fine.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in
Oh,
favor?
wait.
I'm sorry, Counselor Stockwell.
This wasn't actually in the meeting minutes, but I would like to have it in the meeting minutes. The mayor mentioned at our last meeting that perhaps the Barre Area Development Corporation and the Barre Partnership had been blindsided by the request for metrics. So I just went back and checked. And in fact, in January of 24, Councilor Spalding asked the same questions about metrics and KPI. So I just wanted to clarify for the record that not only did they had forewarning, but they had a year to prepare for this. And that's all. Thanks.
We'll see that that's reflected in the record.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries. Councilor, item 4A on the agenda, this is to approve the city of warrants. We'll be approving the week of 4/23/25 and ratifying the week of 4/16/25. Is there a motion to that effect?
So
please?
moved.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, your abstention is noted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. City Clerk and Treasurer.
All right. Two things. I'll be very brief because there's a room full of people here. I just want to let you know that absentee ballots are now available. There are 3 ways that you can vote early. You may request one by logging on to your My Voter page account and requesting through that, that website. Secondly, you may call the office, 802-476-0242, requesting a ballot via the phone, or you may come into the office and vote directly in the office. Our hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30. Secondly, May 3rd is coming right up. That is Green Up Day. We have an abundance of the bags, and I really hope that people come in and start grabbing them. We have boxes and boxes of bags in hopes that people will come get the bags, get out into the community and help clean up the neighborhoods. And that's all I have.
Is there any other place we can put the bags?
Well, we're trying to keep track of how many people are grabbing, what
Gotcha.
neighborhoods they're going to be focused on, just so every year we can just get enough bags. We don't want to run out, but we also don't want to have so many that there's just,
And we're out there on Saturday too, so.
Correct.
Yeah, if people need a bag on Saturday, it's like Saturday morning, if you decide to green up, not a problem, come down to City Hall, you'll get a bag.
I think they're also usually at the Subaru dealership up the hill, right?
Yeah,
So-
oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Any questions for the city clerk and treasurer? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Liquor and Cannabis Control Board. Council, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 applications before you this evening, 2 for Dollar General, 1 at South Main, 1 at North Main. This is their second-class tobacco on both locations. The Meltdown, 83 Washington Street, first-class liquor license, outside consumption permit, Vermont Strong Cannabis, won't read the address. Tobacco and tobacco substitute, Spencer's on North Main Street, second-class tobacco, tobacco substitute, and Beverage Baron on North Main Street, second-class tobacco and tobacco substitute. Motion would be in order.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And those opposed, motion carries. Liquor and Cannabis Control Board is adjourned. Mr. Manager.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple updates for the council. Just before the meeting, the mayor signed the FOP contract with our police union, so that formally executes the new collective bargaining agreement. So thank you, council. You approved this at the March
That's what I
11th
was
meeting.
signing?
Yeah.
No.
So you approved this at the 3/11 meeting, and since then, we do a lot of the little technical cleanup of the language and references and all that. Good contract for both parties, competitive increases in salary, new career ladders and salary schedule. So very happy that we got there, and Corporal Jake Fry, who I know many people know from his day job, is the leader of the local union, so I'm going to thank and recognize Jake for taking on the thankless and unpaid job of union head for the FOP. The mayor alluded to this earlier, but the Trestle Bridge number 308, the removal has started with the staging of equipment. At the March 25th meeting, the council approved an MOU with AOT and various other parties to remove that bridge. As I know many of you know, the structure is obsolete, hasn't been used since 2019, and it's been one of our top priorities to get that removed because it's basically functioning as a debris catcher that exacerbates flood risks in that neighborhood. I don't have the details on the timeline for removal, but I know that they're looking to move quick, and as I said, deployment and staging has started. So, thank you to the mayor, the council, and Secretary Joe Flynn, who really, helped make sure we got to that point. Bulky Waste Day, Saturday, May 10th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the BOR parking lot. There's a flyer on our website and social media with all the details. Really important, this is for residents only, and you do have to bring proof of residency, so that can be a utility or property tax bill. If you're a registered voter and you come show your ID, we will, I believe, have former clerk Carol Dawes checking the voter registration roll. So it's a good reason to get registered to vote, actually. So that's another way you can get in, and if you're a tenant, just bring your lease. This is a free event for residents. And also, in the theme of spring cleaning, the Barrytown Yard Waste Disposal Site spring hours have opened. This is the disposal site on Upper Holden Road, for which the city pays for the to allow city residents to use it as well. The current hours are Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., Tuesdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Also has a flyer on our website and social media with all the details, and I, again, encourage people to follow the rules, make sure, don't bring your waste up there, don't bring, make sure we follow the rules so that the town continues to want to do this partnership with us. So that is it for me.
Thank you very much. Any questions, council? Anyone? Okay, then we will move along. Council, we're at item 8A on the agenda. This is to approve the manager's contract. That did go into your packet. As I said, we originally had a February 28th. The negotiations with the manager, we did our job. The manager obviously advocates for the manager and his family. We did our job. But what was most important to the council was continuity of management, continuity at the top. So originally, the manager asked for a 4-year contract. We countered with a 5-year contract. We were playing hardball. Interestingly, the contract did not include a provision, anything about haircuts. That was purely voluntary. But thanks. But thanks. Anyway, but like I said, overall, 5-year agreement. I think anyone who wants to, it's been in the packet since this morning because we only received it Friday. I wanted to give the council, even though we had the major points, I wanted to give the council the opportunity to review it. So thank you for your quick review and your quick turnaround. So here we are. Motion to approve the contract and authorize the mayor to execute it, which he already has, would be in order.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion or questions about the contract? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice haircut.
Thank you.
Too, really. I'm such a jerk. It was a little shocking. I just got to be honest with you. Give me some warning. I know. Give me some warning. Okay, council, we're at item 8B on the agenda. This is the police department statistical update. Chief, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to say that the city manager would not allow us to comment on his contract publicly.
Send me an email.
It can be brutal.
If you want to get in on the haircut, apparently we're doing that.
It's jump on board.
You made me cut my mullet when I got here.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to do the first couple slides and turn it over to the chief. Just to provide some context.
It's not.
Oh, it looks like we'll have a slight delay on the screen up there, maybe. Give me 1 second. It's doing that. Let me try again. I'll try another way. Let's see if we can do it this way, if this works better. Yep, that worked better. Thank you. So like I said, I'm just going to provide just some few points here at the top. There we go. This is the last update we had on these statistics was around last fall and around the time we did the public safety forum this winter. Just very high level summary. We've observed increased occurrences of quality of life or nuisance crimes, however you want to call them. They've been both reported and observed in higher numbers, and this includes vandalism in parks, overnight parking in the auditorium. This obviously doesn't happen throughout the year, but during various seasons you have some of these events occurring. Some higher incidents of litter in public spaces, drug use and activity, open containers and smoking in city parks, which is not allowed, petty theft reported by many city merchants, and aggressive panhandling and harassment of people in our downtown. I always want to make sure that you've seen some of these slides at the Public Safety Forum, but I think it's important that this is not a Barre City issue. It's not a Barre City problem. A lot of our communities are facing similar data increases in these types of crimes. So this is not something that we've caused here. It's not something that's unique to Barre. Across the state, these are things that people are observing. And I'm going to turn it over to the chief just by finally saying that the perceptions on increased crime are backed by the data. We showed you this is some updated slides to what we showed you before, but there is it's not, people aren't making it up, frankly. Like there is data that validates that there are increased occurrences. So I'll turn it over to the chief, and chief, if you want to prompt me when it's time to move on, happy to.
Thank you. The chart that you're looking at here, what I did for the stats this year was just do the first quarter from January to March. So you could see the breakdown. The blue bar represents the 3-year average, which was what I had done previously. And the, I guess you'd call it peach bar, is the 2024 statistics. And then the greenish bar is the Q1 2025. And you could see they were broken down by percentages there. I do have the actual raw data. For instance, and I know Councilor Stockwell, who is on Zoom here, she had asked also for some breakdowns of property crimes and violent crimes, like I did the last time. Property crimes, which is not listed on here, only partial is. Property crimes consist of burglary, motor vehicle theft, larcenies, and arson. And in 2024, there were 305, which was a 6% increase over 2023. And in the first quarter of 2025, we've already had 80 property crimes. Of those, retail theft accounts for 66 in 2024, which was a 32% increase over 2023. And year to date, well, not year to date, first quarter 2025, we've already had 20 retail thefts. The violent crimes, those categories as defined by the FBI, consist of murder, manslaughter, sexual assault, robbery, and aggravated assault. We've had 32 in 2024, which is a 3% decrease over 2023. And that, as I had shown last time on that chart, with the exception of a spike in, I believe it was 2021, it continues on a downward trend. So violent crime is on a downward trend. And as you can see, the most issues that we deal with are what we classify as quality of life issues. In the first quarter, the department handled 2,281 total incidents. And of those, 7% of those incidents account for the quality of life issues. We've had 15 vandalisms, 9 loitering, vagrancy complaints, 28 disorderly conduct complaints. We've answered 54 disturbances. We've had 16 larceny from motor vehicles, 3 larceny from persons, and again, 20 retail thefts. And we've had 6 reported overdoses in the first quarter with no fatalities. If you want to go to the next slide.
Sure.
The next slide pretty much just shows we have, as with any place, you have repeated contacts with a small group of people. This represents, with no names given, this represents about 8, I think it is, 8 most repeat offenders that accounted, in 2024, they accounted for 367 contacts with our agency. And you could see that graph just pretty much breaks down that we had where we're at there with contacts. You can see we've had one male we've already had 25 contacts with, another male we've had 14, another male we've had 12, and I broke it down from just sex with no names to show that we do have repeat offenders that account for a large majority of the contacts that we deal with. Yes.
What happens during those, when you are called out to have contact with these same individuals? What happens? Well, like, let's say they're loitering or something is drug related. Do they get arrested? Are they asked to move along? Could you just talk me through that?
Sure, it depends. If a crime's committed, they do get arrested, and by arrested, it's usually cited into court unless the arrest, it warrants actual taking into custody and lodging, depending on the time of day, or they get brought to court if it's during court hours. Some of the contacts are, just, hey, we got a complaint, you can't be here, what's going on, type thing. So there's several different contacts that we could have. If it's a disturbance, we go and verify that there was no assault, no crime, find out what's going on. It could be noise, we tell them to keep it down, those sorts of things.
So not every single time you have contact.
This doesn't mean somebody's getting arrested.
Right, it just means you have contact with them.
Correct. It's
Okay.
just contact.
And would you say that these, if I could follow up, would you say that the majority of these are driving the data in the slide before this?
I don't know if it's the majority that drives it, but they're a large account for some of that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go to the next slide. This was the
EMS, yeah, I can talk about this one. This is to provide you a comparison from the last time we did this presentation, that there may, we're also seeing the correlation in increased EMS calls with some of the quality of life issues we're going, primarily related to mostly the drug incidents. So this is just to show you that it transverses departments in the public safety realm. You see the increase here from across the years is pretty consistent.
And I will add to that some of those EMS calls, by nature, we do have to respond either in assistance to them or we've called them there.
And Councilor Stockwell has her hand up.
Yes, Councilor Stockwell?
I'm just wondering, do you know from the increase in EMS calls, which is a pretty substantial increase, how many of those are disturbance related? How many of those are something? Is there any breakdown of what the categories of EMS calls? Are they pretty much disturbances?
I don't have the breakdown here. I don't know, Chief, if you know, but we
No, that would be something probably that we'd have to look at the data and
Yeah.
get with the fire department on to find out what
yeah,
those are.
I speculate most of these are probably driven by drug issues is my speculation, Counselor, but I will get the breakdown from Chief Cushman.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. And so just finally, on the city response, we shared this with you right around the time of the Public Safety Forum as well, which, our goal that we set for the whole city team, whether it be public safety, public works, whoever is encountering residents, is to show empathy for those that are in need of attention, supports, food, water, or services, right? That's, I believe that's the right thing to do. We're trying to balance that with the obligation to the other residents of Barre, right? And so when we're seeing some of these quality of life or nuisance crimes occurring that are discouraging people from recreating in Barre, from using our public spaces, from being downtown, we have to balance that as well. And so finding that balance is challenging, but this is not one-sided one way or the other, right? This is both empathy for those in need, but also recognition of the needs of everyone else who's also living here and sharing our public spaces. We have done things to respond to this. The chief started directed patrols. We started last fall, I think we did dedicated overtime shifts to do foot patrols. We haven't talked about doing that. That's probably something we'll discuss as we get closer to the warmer weather when these activities tend to increase. And then for today's, later in today's agenda, after we talk about the policy, one of the other responses we're hoping to get your approval for is to install security cameras that will assist our police officers with enforcement of current ordinances and response to incidents. And Byrne Rose has her hand up.
Byrne, did you have a question?
Yes, thanks. I'm wondering, do we have any issues at or around our schools in like the Playground 2000? That seems like a pretty busy place, and I don't see that anywhere in here, or that end of town being included, or around the high school where I know we've heard about the parking, but in terms of that. And then a second thing is, we had discussed lighting in that area along Metro Way and improving the lighting back there. That was something that folks asked about. So I'm wondering, have we checked that out to see if we could put in more lighting and what effect that would have? Thank you.
Byrne, one of the things regarding the lighting we did, the folks that work the overnight shift went around specifically and took down note of all the lights that were out. And that has been forwarded on to DPW so that they can get with Green Mountain Power to get those repaired. Regarding the additional lights, I don't think we've moved that forward as of yet.
No, that would be also working along with the cameras as well. That would be an approach we would take. Both are in motion with Green Mountain Power and DPW as they are repairing the cameras. The chief said that the officers noted. We're also talking to them about expansion of coverage with the lighting.
And as far as the playground areas and the school areas, I didn't break it down by location. I could do a deeper dive and break everything down by location. We do have a few instances where we do respond to the schools, but a lot of the issues have been concentrated more in the downtown area and other areas of the city other than specifically the school areas. I'm sorry, was there a third question in there?
That was it.
No, thank you. That was good. I was just going from the information on this slide that said where you were increasing patrols. So
Oh, okay. I thought you meant on the statistics. I'm sorry.
no,
We have been increasing the patrols specifically due to the parking and the speeding complaints near the high school. As well, we have a school resource officer that's down at the elementary school.
right. I understand he's there. So I was just looking at Playground 2000 and wondering if you have complaints from that area, or if people are going around the schools at night, or looking for shelter, or
The
using
officers make frequent patrols down in that area on the overnight shift, the Rotary Park, the shelter down there, as well as Playground 2000. So they do periodically go through there during the overnight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Sam, did you have a question?
I did. It sounds like those 8 individuals are responsible for quite a lot of busy work for the police and difficulty for being downtown. So I'm wondering if you've tried, if they're cited, that's a public record, correct?
I'm sorry?
If anyone is cited or arrested, is that a public record?
Once it goes to court, the entire affidavit becomes public record. But yes, once they're cited, it's public record as far as who it was and what the issue was.
So there's no reason you couldn't sit down with services that might be of assistance, like the Justice Center or Washington County Mental Health, and say, they cannot disclose information to you, correct? Because it's HIPAA protected. But you could say, what can we do in terms of coordinated support for these individuals? And how can we have a better response?
Correct. And
Does that
one
seem
of the,
possible?
yeah, one of the things that was taking place was what they called pre-arraignment services, and those types of issues were discussed at those pre-arraignment services. I'm not sure where that stands right now, if that funding was cut or not. I would have to look into that and get back to you. But a lot of that was discussed at that venue.
Thank you.
So, Chief, the folks that you reference in the data, who have a high instance of contact, you likely know who they are because you know their job. You likely have them memorized. Are you aware that any of them have not been offered services?
Everybody's been offered services. That we
Every
deal with.
single one.
Yes,
And yet, here we are.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, we can only offer services. They don't, if they refuse, we can't force them into services.
Right. Thank you. Okay, any other questions, council? All right, we will move on. Chief, thank you. Manager, thank you.
Thank you.
It's helpful. Council, we will move on to, well, what you have is 8B on the agenda. This was a tough one when I was looking at the agenda because I said, well, does it make sense to talk about a policy if you're not purchasing cameras? Or should you talk about purchasing cameras, but folks may not trust that we'll have the right policy? So in the end, I decided to leave it the way it was. We'll look at the policy, we'll talk about that first, and then we'll move on to authorizing the purchase of security cameras. So first of all, Councilor Guston, thank you for your good work on this and for the edits. Thank you for the call this afternoon. Absolutely agree with the work that you suggested, and thank you, Chief and Manager LaCastro, for being receptive to them. So why don't you, I don't know how you want to proceed,
Yeah,
Chief, Manager, however
I'll
you want to go.
start just to provide a little bit of context. Thank you, Mayor. And this, what I'm displaying on the screen is, has highlighted language, which are edits that came from a conversation, some comments that Councilor Guston had raised and suggested to the chief. So this is different from what's in the packet. And I'm sorry, Council, you don't have a printed version in front of you, but you can, we'll be displaying it here in the room, and I'll, hopefully everyone can see the proposed changes. And Chief, I'll turn it over to you if you want to run down the general gist of the policy and then some of these changes that are contained.
So these policies are based on standard protocols, not to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of other municipalities and metropolitan cities throughout the country that have their policies published for this. So I went through and Barreized it, if you will, and took what was necessary, what fit us, and jotted that down into a policy. Basically, the gist of it is that it starts with the scope that just outlines that what it applies to and what it doesn't apply to. For instance, we have body-worn cameras that we use that also, takes video in public. This does not apply to that. That's under the state mandated body-worn camera policy. So that's just the scope. The operational guidelines, it talks about who has access to the system and what it is used for. So basically, if you look on the operational guidelines under B there, what it would be used for is to monitor public spaces. It is capable of real-time monitoring for roadway and weather conditions. But to be clear, we're not going to be seated in front of a TV screen and being, having somebody just watching this camera system. But when there's a snowstorm, we can bring it up and see what the roadway conditions are for DPW, those sort of things, as well as the folks on the road. We have real-time monitoring for public safety and to capture the commission of the crimes, but again, we're not basically sitting in front of the camera and watching this. More importantly, it provides officers with pre-arrival intelligence when responding to an in-progress incident. So by that, basically, it means that if you get a call of a disturbance where one of these cameras are placed, the dispatch staff can open up the camera system and give that intelligence to officers responding to the scene. Say there was a fight between three individuals and it came in that somebody had a knife, the dispatch staff could be providing us with, hey, somebody's running around this corner, they just threw something in a dumpster or something like that. It also, and most importantly, it augments after the event investigations for evidentiary purposes. So in other words, if there was a crime committed in the area of one of these cameras, we could go look at the camera footage around the time that the crime was committed and look for the evidence of that crime. And that may not only lead us to the identity of an individual, if they're recognized on the video, also it could be used to show the actions of, if somebody said, hey, I was assaulted, and then you could actually see that assault that took place if it was recorded. Another important aspect is this is not used to invade privacy of individuals or to look into areas that cannot be seen by the naked eye from public space or into areas where a reasonable expectation of privacy exists. So when you're out in public, anybody's out in public, they don't necessarily have a reasonable expectation of privacy if they're just walking down the street and doing what they're doing, going about their day-to-day lives. They could be videotaped by anybody on a cell phone. They could be videotaped by any of the businesses that they walk by, which may have video cameras that capture the outside sidewalk area as well. These images that will be collected will not be used for the purpose of collecting or maintaining information about any political, religious, or social views, associations, or activities of any group, association, organization, corporation, business, or partnership unless such information directly relates to a criminal investigation. So these cameras are not to be used for any political purposes or anything like that. It's strictly a security camera system for what I mentioned up in item B there, letter B. We also, if you look at the highlighted language down there, one of the changes we made was in letter E there, we added immigration status. They're not going to be used to monitor individuals based on their race, physical attributes, age, sex, marital status, any of those things, or immigration status. And again, and thanks to Counselor Stockwell, she had sent me a message over the weekend about facial recognition. I just want to make it clear that in the state of Vermont, per Vermont statute, we are not allowed to use facial recognition technology. So any features of that system, which I don't believe this system has any features like that because they're well aware that Vermont doesn't use it. But I did just add that in there should they exist, because if we ever went with a different outfit, we couldn't use any facial recognition technology. The only time that a police department or law enforcement agency is allowed to use such technology is in the investigation into sexual exploitation of children under Title 13, Chapter 64. The disclaimer there, again, we put these in all our policies that any misuse, you can be disciplined up to and including termination based on the totality. Then it goes on to talk about the retention and the release of data. The camera system has an onboard maximum retention system of 30 days. I did find out the answer to that question. It is programmable to less.
Great.
If we so desired, but it just provides a maximum of 30 days.
Great. And if I may just add, this is not reflected in the policy because the chief was checking into this, but I had asked him if we could, by policy, limit the amount of time we keep footage from this camera system to the minimum amount of time required by public retention law. So that we are doing our due diligence for public records requests and retention, but that we are also not keeping it a moment longer than that.
I mean, like I had mentioned in my response to you, I think we covered all our bases otherwise. So I don't really see an issue with that. For any release of the data, letter A there talks about data which is discoverable under the Vermont Rules of Criminal Procedure. Basically, all that means is anytime we make an arrest, we have a discovery process which we have to release, provide all the evidence to the state's attorney so that they can provide it to the defense. We have to do that in it's a 10-day window that we have there. So that just covers that this would be in accordance with the rules of criminal procedure. All other release for requests of data would be handled in accordance with the Vermont Public Records Act. We wouldn't release anything unless if it was exempt from those under the exemptions of the Vermont Public Records Act, and we would not release it in any civil matter. So if there was specifically like a divorce proceeding and somebody wanted to find out if their spouse was in this area, we couldn't release that unless it was mandated by a court order. Also, any release and usage of the system would not contradict our responsibilities under the fair and impartial policing policy, which is a state mandated policy which covers talking about not only immigration, but our interactions with the federal government as it pertains to those matters. And that is the rundown of the policy in a nutshell.
Jeremy Spiro Wynn, do you have a question or comment?
No, I just actually had a suggestion about how to potentially enhance the policy in regards to facial recognition. One thing that I think we left out there was any private contractors' usage of facial recognition, feeding data gathered from cameras into AI training systems, things of that nature. So, right, while the city of Barre might prohibit itself, or the state of Vermont might prohibit us from using facial recognition data, I do think we need to be careful to make sure that we're not contracting with anyone who's going to then feed the data of Barre City residents into facial recognition or AI training systems. So I think that might be a prudent thing to include in the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Would we?
You could certainly put in a disclaimer about such things like, for instance, we have, with our body cameras, we can upload to the cloud through what's called evidence.com. It's by Axon. We frequently upload all evidentiary things into that cloud. Mm-hmm. And that would just say that they could not use our data for those purposes. So you could put that disclaimer.
And we do that now, right? We do that now with body cam footage, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's covered under a specific
So if
different policy, but you could have that disclaimer in there that any contractor, which he was referring to, would be such as that they can't use our data.
Okay, seems simple enough. Yeah. Yes.
I guess a follow-up question on that, does it make sense to insert into this policy, or does it make sense to have a new policy about the way the Barre City Police Department interacts with outside vendors around the use of data for Barre City residents?
It's covered in any policy that specifically speaks to an individual thing. There's usually a disclaimer on there. So, I mean, you could create a blanket policy, but it would be just as simple to put it in this because it exists in other policies about specific things.
Thank you.
But it's, and we could do that as suggested, but if I understood what you just said, if a police officer is uploading evidentiary data to the cloud, there is a policy that covers that.
Yes.
If this camera footage was being used as evidentiary data and that police officer, even if we didn't put it in the policy, and that police officer were uploading that evidentiary data to the cloud,
Right.
it would be covered by that policy.
Yes, correct.
So the disclaimer would be there, and the police officer.
Correct. It is already there for that system, yes.
Correct. And there's only one system that we have to upload evidentiary data. Not going to say that too many more times, up into the cloud. So we already have the policy there, but we could put it here. I mean, there wouldn't be anything wrong with putting a disclaimer in, but it's there now because there is only one system. Yes.
I think I would feel most comfortable putting it into this policy because that way, if we change systems in the future or added systems in the future, this would be a more blanket statement about that. I understand we have one now and it's already covered, but this could make it go forward.
Yes.
I have a few questions. So, Chief, you talked about how someone wouldn't be sitting and monitoring the system 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So how will you know when you need to look at the cameras?
For instance, I'll give you a perfect example. There was a robbery on the 19th, 3 days ago, the Granite City Market. The individual was reported to have went out the back door and went down through Metro Way. Had there been a camera out there, the dispatch staff, when they got that call and was told that the individual, he or she, went out the back door, they would go to the cameras and they could look for that.
So with you saying that and the way that I'm understanding it is it's basically reactive. Something happens.
That particular thing is reactive. Like I said, the dispatch staff, while they do have monitors for various things, they're not sitting there in tune to the monitor because they have everything else to do. But if a call comes in, they could, for instance, say you had a 6-camera display, they could choose the ones that are in that area and look to see what was going on.
Right, but it sounds like most of it will be, there will be a human person, an officer, someone at dispatch, who will say, oh, I need to look at the cameras, whether it's because an incident has happened or an incident is happening.
Correct.
Okay. And then I also wondered, for the operational guidelines for the city manager and IT specialist may access, can we be specific about when they would access that and for what reason?
The IT specialist would access it, obviously, if we had any problems
Right?
with it.
Not that I think our IT specialist wants to access the computer for other reasons, but I want to be clear that I think we should be clear about why other people would need to access the system.
And because he's the city manager and it's,
And you're just going to let him do whatever he wants?
well, it's in his contract. He said I couldn't give public comment. No, it was there only because he is the city manager and it was his system. Technically speaking, it's not our system.
Okay. And then my last few questions are, do we have to post signage where we're in the vicinity where we have
Good
cameras?
question, and Counselor Stockwell also, that came up the last time this was spoken about. It didn't necessarily need to be in the policy, but it is a good idea to put the signage out. We could have signs at every main entrance to the city as well as in the downtown area, around several locations in the downtown area, that this area is under camera surveillance.
Okay. And then my last question is how do you believe that crime will decrease? Or do you believe that crime will decrease specifically because we have cameras? And I guess my one concern is that if people who are hanging out in the downtown on a regular basis know that there are cameras, wouldn't they just go somewhere where there aren't cameras?
Well, for one, cameras can be used as a deterrent, so it could have a decrease in crime. One of the benefits to having cameras is it would better enable us to utilize evidence in that crime, and those crimes that do occur where we can't identify somebody, we have a better chance of identifying the individuals with the cameras. And correct, if they do go somewhere else, they may go somewhere else. Doesn't necessarily mean that cameras are going to make a huge decrease in crime. It just augments us, as well as the ability to identify individuals that have committed crimes and have a greater cachet of evidence, if you will, to use in court.
Okay, I think that's really important, what you just said, because it feels to me like everyone thinks that we're going to put cameras up and everything's just going to be, all sunshine and rainbows. And I think we have to recognize that, especially with our 8 high flyers, maybe their behavior will change, maybe it won't. And so I'm just hoping that we can recognize that we hope that crime will decrease, but it doesn't mean that it necessarily will.
Totally understandable.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council, or anyone in the audience? So you suggested, so we talked about kind of a redundant disclaimer in the policy. Where would you place that, Chief, and how? Regarding use of footage, even though it's a little redundant because we only have one system to upload evidentiary data
It
one
would
more time.
probably be D, under release of data.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be a bullet point that says, any third-party vendor cannot use facial recognition, or I could have a bullet point underneath where it specifically talks about facial
Okay,
recognition.
we'll do that. Okay, so you want to do that under Operational guidelines B. Gotta mute it.
Yeah, we could put it under operational guidelines. Probably, if we're talking specifically about facial recognition, it would be a bullet point under F.
Under F. Got it. Okay, council, yes.
Could I just ask a follow-up question? Because Jeremy Sparrow-Wynn said something about AI. Did he say AI farming? What did he say?
If I can,
I was talking about AI training information.
Training.
Right. So essentially, the way these processes work is that huge quantities of data are uploaded to AI systems that then gets labeled and then used in order to train bigger data models that then go out and get applied in all sorts of different places throughout the world. So it's
So could we also include AI training? Okay, as well, thank you.
thanks.
Cassidy Gale, did you have a question or a comment?
I did. Hi, thanks. I'm curious, just in the era we live in with data breaches and all sorts of third-party companies having access to software, what would be the repercussions if that disclaimer is not followed? And my second question is, if a primary point of these cameras are a deterrent, has anyone considered the cost factor of just putting up signs saying that there are cameras and not the cameras themselves? Thanks.
Don't do that at my house. They're real.
As far as your first point, with data breaches, it would follow any type of data breach that we have nationally now. If there was a crime committed, it would be dealt with, or there would be a civil action that would be taken if you found out that that was happening. Regarding the just putting up signs that there's cameras in play, it still would not allow us to use cameras for the evidentiary purposes or giving officers pre-arrival intelligence. So the cameras do have a major benefit over just the signs.
Thank you. Yes, Ginger Cloud?
Great. Thanks so much for this thoughtful conversation. I really appreciate it and all the hard work that's going into this. So it sounds like one major reason for these cameras are there's like this handful of individuals that seem to be an issue in the community, and that is kind of being prioritized over the other, they said 8,000 residents or whatnot, privacy or, so just kind of curious about that. And then the other thing I'm wondering, is there a lack of evidence, the idea that we need more evidence for these kind of bad actors, or however people want to think about it, to be able to get them the real services that are needed? And so I'm just kind of curious if we're looking for more evidence.
Ginger, I don't know that your question is germane at this juncture. I think you might, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think you might be your question might be better placed under item 8C on the agenda, which is authorize the purchase of security cameras, because I don't hear anything to your question
I'm
going
kind of
to the.
curious if there is a need for more evidence. It seems like a lot of this is about collecting evidence towards people, and it sounds like there's a lack of evidence that the police force has been able to collect just through people's accounts of things that are happening or their own investigation process.
Well, again, I think it goes more to the use of the cameras than the policy itself. I mean, I'd be happy to entertain that same question in a few minutes, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious.
Okay,
that
sure
I'm saying
thing.
here.
Okay, council, regarding the policy, any other questions or comments? So if you are inclined, council, a motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Does anyone have any questions regarding the policy? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Sorry, were there any abstentions? Were you an aye, Councilor Spaulding?
Yep.
Okay. Nope, you were silent, so I just wanted to make sure.
No, I said aye.
Got
Just
it.
got lost.
Okay, motion carries. We will, yes.
Do you need to put it in the record that you want it's approved, but
As
you want
amended.
that?
Yeah.
As amended.
It's I'll ask for it back. If you could, just shoot it back to the council. I'm sure it'll be fine. But if you could, just as a courtesy, if you could shoot it back to him next week, that would be great. Okay, council, we will move on to what is on your agenda, 8C on your agenda. This is to authorize the purchase of security cameras.
Thank you, Mayor.
And of course, we have a,
PowerPoint.
of course, we have a PowerPoint.
Of course, I get paid by the PowerPoint. So we, current deployment of cameras, so for many years, the city had a Verkada security camera on the front of City Hall, facing City Hall Park. That camera's plan had terminated and the city began to pilot the new system that I mentioned several weeks ago. We believe, as we've said, that additional cameras will allow patrol officers to better respond to the complaints and have the benefits that the chief mentioned in his presentation. The camera system that we're looking to seek your authorization to purchase really meets the priorities of what we're looking for in this system. This is something that both the chief, the deputy chief, and Chris have been, looking at intently into the specifications, and based on the needs of the police department, based on our capabilities, we think across the board that this system will do what we need. This is we're not breaking ground here. I think the notion that Barre City is doing something new and unique is not, it's just not the case. We're frankly a little bit behind many other communities. This is just Verkada security cameras across Vermont, and you can see very common across the education world, and also across several municipalities and other local governments. So this is, as I said, this is just Verkada. We know Burlington uses cameras, Stowe uses cameras, Middlebury uses cameras. I know that the chief presented the last time he talked about this. Just many communities that are doing this. So really, we're not breaking ground. We're actually a little bit behind some of our neighboring communities. So the proposal we have brought for you today would be citywide deployment of Verkada cameras across City Hall and the Public Safety Building, and in 4 high-traffic locations across the city, which the police department selected in terms of being high-priority areas to have coverage. This includes what I'm going to show you in terms of cost, includes both the installation, setup, and training to get these on board. This is to show you the exterior deployment. These are there'd be the cameras that would be outdoors. We would have a camera on the intersection of Main Street and Maple Avenue. We would have a couple cameras in Merchants Row in the parking lot, and then on Elm Street and Main Street, right next to near where the Cornerstone is. Just a brief timeline. It's pretty condensed. You can see if we have your approval tonight, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the purchase details, and the orderings will start happening, and then the installation configuration training would be this spring. So we would, in speaking to the vendor, we think that we could have this on board fairly quickly. And then the cost of this is on this slide. We are looking at a 10-year program to get some economies of scale on this. So the total licensing cost per year, we're proposing to pay out of the general fund. That's $5,704. And the equipment cost, the cameras themselves, would be $9,594. for 10 years, and we would propose to pay that out of the capital improvement fund. So in the interest of transparency, this is, the installation of the cameras. This is for the hardware, software of the cameras themselves. At the actual point of installation, we're likely to require some modifications to electrical or connection expenses, and both us and the vendor believe those to be in the range of $5,000. So that would be an additional cost, a one-time cost at installation that we would do out of the capital improvement fund. But I want to be transparent that that would be in addition to what I'm showing you on this slide here. So that's it. Happy to answer questions on the, Chris is here also can answer some questions on the specs.
Before we get there, council, we received, I believe, 4 communications. I think you were all copied on those.
Yes.
One, so I'm just going to give those to the clerk so that we can, if there's no objection from the council, I want to get those into the record, because those folks are saying that they couldn't be here this evening. I know you all have them, so hopefully you read them. I responded to all of them. Want to talk first, because it was an interesting perspective, one that Dan Barlow sent from People's Health and Wellness Clinic. And the point that he made was that they frequently have people who are seeking treatment for addiction or other medical issues. And he was saying that he didn't want, he hoped the city would be sensitive towards training a camera on the front entrance of the People's Health and Wellness Clinic. They have cameras there, but they're at the rear. I don't think, the resolution isn't that high, is it? So it would be on, say, if I'm correct, first of all, I don't know how you would know why someone was going there, but assuming, that we don't want to discourage anyone from seeking treatment, certainly. So I'm not aware that you'd have to zoom it in, wouldn't you, where the...
Yeah, I can address that, Mayor. Sure, I thought Dan's points were very well made, very thoughtful comments, and I went and talked to Chris about this. So you're absolutely right. The cameras wouldn't be zoomed in. They're not, they wouldn't be on his location from the City Hall Park location. They wouldn't be able to, also from the Elm Street location.
But they could be.
If they could be, right. What we can do is, I talked to Chris about this, and he may have already made the adjustment, is the camera in front of City Hall here is called a sentry mode. It basically has patrol zones. Is that what they're called, Chris? Patrol zones? So what that means is that we've focused it on 3 specific views right outside the building. The way it had been set up, it captured the last step of people's health and wellness. And what Chris can do is pan that just out of reach. So I think that's a very fair concern. I'm glad Dan brought it up. And that's something where Chris may have already addressed it, but he and I talked about it. Yeah, he did. So
Okay, so you're aware and you can accommodate that?
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. Councilor Spaulding?
Just a quick follow-up to that. Are the cameras, can you, this may sound silly, is it stationary? The view is stationary?
Chris, you might want to come up.
Or can it be moved?
I'll start, and then Chris will, because he's really become the expert on the capabilities. But the Sentry cameras have a patrol zone where they basically pan from patrol zone to patrol zone. And then Chris, you want to pick it up from there?
So let's see. There are different types of cameras. Standard dome cameras don't have the ability to move around and look. But some of the cameras, like the one on the front of City Hall right now, are PTZ cameras, which is pan, tilt, and zoom. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that have the ability to have patrol zones. So we specify where the view is for a patrol zone, or you set up 2 or 3 of them. And it will, every minute or 2 or 3, whatever you program it to, switch to another zone and switch. And it'll switch from zone to zone just throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so.
But you can zoom, so you can, if there was something happening and it was on this particular zone, but you wanted to actually see the gazebo, let's say. You could switch it, the dispatch could switch it to that zone and keep it on that zone, and could zoom in.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And how many cameras are you asking to purchase? And how many will be like that?
So within the, I mean, there's the, in the buildings, and then the exterior ones,
It's gonna be close to 30 cameras.
yeah, most of them are in the buildings.
Yeah, most of them are, I think, 9 in City Hall and 16, I think, are going to public safety. And then.
Replacing what we had there.
Yeah,
Replacing.
replacing the ones that they already have. And 4 at intersections.
Okay, and are the ones that are outside at intersections, are those all the, what did you call them?
The PTC cameras.
Okay. And then is there any maintenance? Is there any ongoing maintenance that we'll have to?
Well, fortunately, the company does a 10-year warranty on all of these cameras. So if anything goes wrong with them, they replace them.
Okay, great. And then my last question, it's not really a question, I guess it's more of, well, it's a question. It's a like hypothetical, theoretical question. It seems to me that, and I just want to preface this all with, I am not against having cameras, and I do want our community members to feel safe. I also think that when we continue to put more money into public safety instead of putting it into the resources that people need, like housing, like food, like affordable health insurance, affordable health care, transportation, public transportation, when we're not providing those things, I think this is a symptom of doing that, as well as generational poverty, as well as stagnant wages, as well as trauma. So I'm curious, at what point do we say, okay, we've reached a tipping point and we have to start spending money on the root cause of problems instead of continuing to put a Band-Aid on them and trying to come at it the other way? So.
Counselor, you're addressing that question to our IT director?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So it's a rhetorical question?
Yep.
Okay, I got you. All right. Anyone else?
You have,
If you'd like to try to answer it, I'd be happy to hear
I
your
mean,
answer.
I'll answer it. I don't want to put Chris in that spot.
I don't think, Chris, no.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think that, you know, Counselor Spalding, we don't have a social services department in the city of Barre. We don't have a Department of Health in the city of Barre. So a lot of the wraparound supports that people who may be responsible for these nuisance crimes need, we don't have the staff to support. We have one social worker on staff. So I don't think these are challenges that not just Barre City, but any other municipality of our size can solve on their own. The expense here on an annual basis is $15,000. Over 10 years, that's a lot of money, but on any given year, $15,000, probably not going to go super far to help the many people who need that type of assistance. And I think that making that investment to respond to public safety concerns that I think are being validated by the data is also important. So on the housing issue, I think we all are working, rowing in that same direction. It takes time, money, and land, and we don't have, we're short on all three of those. So I think we're making strides to do that. Would love to have, I know I mentioned this, like I said, I came from New York City where we do have those agencies that can take on these challenges. We don't. We do public safety, streets, and permitting. Like, those are our basic functions as a municipality in Vermont, and we just we don't have the capacity, nor do our cities of our size. Maybe Burlington does, but we certainly don't to take on the social challenges that are endemic and require sort of a bigger solution.
I hear that, and if I might follow up, my point is, we spend, a good chunk of our budget is spent on public safety, and if we invested more money into the root causes of why people are having nuisance crimes. Why are they shoplifting? Are they shoplifting just for fun? I'm guessing some of them are not shoplifting just for fun. They're shoplifting because they're trying to sell things to either feed themselves, or because of an addiction issue that they might have. So what I'm suggesting is, at some point, we as a community or we as a state need to ask for more help for people who are in need, because we are going to keep throwing money at this problem. We can put up as many cameras as we want, but unless we're addressing the root cause of the issue, it won't matter. So all I'm suggesting is, we could at some point try to say, we're going to take a little bit of the money, because in theory, if we gave people housing, if we gave people food, if people had public transportation to get to a job, we wouldn't need as much public safety. We wouldn't have to spend as much money. That, in theory, is, all of these, a lot of people there are crimes because of the situation that they're in. And so I'm simply suggesting that if we at some point look at how, $15,000 isn't that much, but, let's look at public safety budget. That's a very large budget.
Yeah, and Counselor, I don't want you to think I disagree with addressing the root causes of this is absolutely the way to go. I also, the notion that we have a public safety infrastructure that could be shifted to do what you're suggesting, I just don't think it's true. Chief, you have 3 or 4 officers on shift at any given point, right? 3, 4?
It's usually 2.
2.
Now, 'cause of staffing issues.
Thank you. So our at any given time, there's not this army of police officers that we employ. There's 2, 3, or maybe 4 in the best of times on shift at any point for a city of our size. So I think that's probably understaffed, frankly, for a community of our size. Fire department's the same thing. They have 4 people on staff, and most of what they do is EMS work. So I don't disagree with you about needing to do the root, addressing the root issues. I'm just saying Barry's doesn't have the capacity to do that, and our public safety department is not this massive infrastructure that could be shifted, right? I think we're already pretty darn lean in terms of our staffing. So
I'm not asking you to fix it tonight. I'm just
Maybe you
simply,
should start with the legislature, because I monitor the hotel and motel program every day, on the phone with the Mayor's Coalition, almost every day. The implementation date, 2027.
I'm not sure.
It's a joke.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Councilor Guston?
Excuse me, could you
Councilor
repeat that?
Guston?
Excuse me?
Councilor Guston?
You were speaking to me. Could you please repeat what you said?
Councilor Guston?
I'd like to speak also.
I want to say that I feel like I'm saying this a lot in different contexts, but I feel like this is a moment of both and. I don't disagree that there are root causes that are putting people in desperate situations that the city cannot address. We are trying to address some of those things. They are slow-moving, they are large, they are in concert with other places. I mean, we all set out our legislative priorities in January and asked for support around a number of these issues. And we've also worked on big things like a new housing development, multiple new housing developments and things like that. But as I said, for me, this is a both and. It's not an either or, unfortunately. The problems are so enormous, the challenges are so enormous that we have to do both and, so. That's all.
Councilor Stockwell?
I believe other people have had their hand up before me, and I would like to have Councilor Spaulding able to have her question answered. And I appreciate the questions she's asking. I'm also it's not an either or, it's an and situation. However, it's a great question. So thanks, I'll wait my turn. Jeremy's up, Danielle's up, and Councilor Spaulding had a question.
As I understood your question, the question was, at what point do we shift the resources? Was that your question?
That was part of my question?
Not tonight.
I'm not
That's the
sure.
answer.
I'm not sure I suggested tonight, Mayor. But
It's part of a much
appreciate if you-
bigger discussion that a lot of people are having, Councilor.
I understand
And
that.
some people do the work every day.
Counselor, I mean, Mayor, I feel like you're becoming very aggressive, and I'm simply suggesting that maybe we could look at this a different way. I would agree with Counselor Guston. I would agree with Counselor Stockwell. We have to do what we need to do today, but I'm also suggesting this is bigger than just let's put up cameras and we'll be done. We all know that, right?
It's going to take a lot more work.
It will take a
I'm
lot
not
more
kidding
work.
myself at all.
Okay.
When we look at a hotel and motel program that is being disbanded and then re-implemented with the 5 caps in 2027, and my comment is, what the hell are we going to do between now and 2027?
Well, Mayor, we're on the same page. I think we're
Exactly.
exactly on the same page, and we're trying to help people in our community. So
I agree.
I'm confused as to why you're being so aggressive to me when I'm simply asking, how can we help our community?
Not being aggressive, you're asking a question, and I'm telling you, you're not going to get an answer this evening, because your question is, at what point do we shift resources? At what point do we shift resources away from public safety? I heard your question. I listened politely. At what point do we shift resources away from public safety and more into human resources?
Well, I'm not suggesting tonight.
I don't
I
have the answer
apologize.
to that question. I don't know that anyone, because that was your question, I don't know that anyone here has that answer. And if they pretend that they do, then they're lying to us, because it is a very, very complex question.
Right.
And I can assure you, the best answer I can give you is I can't give you an answer tonight, that we're dealing with cameras. That's what we're talking about. If you want to convene something, if you want to convene a forum around that very question, I'll be there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Where are we at? I don't know who had their hand up, so I'm just going to go left to right on the screen.
That's
Jeremy
how it-
Sparrow Wynn, I'm sorry?
That's how it's set up, so
Oh,
left to right
okay,
is in
thanks.
order.
Thank you. It's Spyro Win, just to be clear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all good. You'll be excited to learn I have a written screed tonight. And a little bit of a change of pace there, but I do just want to say before I get into that at first, I do appreciate that most people here are concerned with public safety. Public safety is a public good, and while we may have different ways and ideas and ideologies about how to approach that, it's something we're all working towards, and it's something that we all believe in, and everyone who is, making an earnest effort towards improving that should be commended for that effort. That said, I, of course, do have some criticisms here, so I'll get into them now. First, even accepting the statistical data at face value, and as a data analyst myself, I'm speaking from my professional opinion when I say there's some very real problems with that. It's not clear to me how cameras will address most of the issues laid out. They don't stop people from getting drunk or overdosing. They don't prevent people from causing disturbances. They can't stop retail theft unless they're actually inside stores. They can't stop people from parking overnight at cow pasture or the odd or littering there. And unless they are being monitored around the clock, which would require allocating additional resources from the police department that just aren't there, all they really do is provide an opportunity to potentially identify offenders. If said offenders are known and capable of being identified, and even then, given the data presented on repeat offenses and staffing shortages, it does not seem clear that will be tremendously effective either. There are ways to address these issues, and it's good to see that the city has taken on some of these measures and should be commended for that. But it's not at all clear that cameras are likely to be particularly effective in this regard. Even that aside, though, there are some extremely concerning patterns of behavior in regards to the selected vendor for CADA. This is a corporation that just last year was fined $3 million by the FTC, the largest CAN Spam Act violation in history, for numerous issues related to misleading claims, inadequate security, and poor practices related to the preservation of customer data. These practices resulted in a hack in which 150,000 customers' live feeds were accessed. Maybe even more concerningly, though, sensitive data like Wi-Fi credentials, addresses, and audio recordings were obtained by hackers as well. This raises some serious questions about a potential exposure risk we're putting the city at by contracting with such a vendor. What we really don't want to put ourselves at risk here is what's known as a ransomware attack. in which sensitive systems are breached by hackers, important data is locked down, and a ransom, usually in Bitcoin, is demanded to unlock that data. This has been happening at municipalities throughout the country, and the fallout has caused serious problems at communities exactly like ours wherever they've occurred. The culture inside Verkada itself also seems to be extremely concerning. Bloomberg has reported an internal bro culture in which employees engaged in drinking and drug use at work, sexually harassed female employees, in part by using the very video feeds from their own camera systems, and freely access customer video feeds for their own entertainment, something that the CEO himself acknowledged made it difficult to trust them. We could also dig into further questions about their relentless focus on profits and notoriously high-pressure sales techniques, and what that says about them as a reliable partner to the city. But, I don't think you want me taking up an hour of your time to go over that. I, for one, also do have serious reservations about their use of AI and facial recognition, which Verkada has gleefully embraced. We should be thinking long and hard about whether or not we want to do business with a company that feeds facial recognition data of our ordinary citizens into their databases to train AI systems, and ultimately dispose of as they please, particularly given the broader political climate we find ourselves in right now. I, for one, don't want the city to help in an effort like that. And while our own policies may be eventually adopted that eschew those use of facial recognition, given the level of trust we've seen from Verkada, I'm not sure that we can trust them to actually live up to those agreements. As we see in a lot of Silicon Valley companies, the data disappears into their systems, they do with it what they please, and oftentimes these sorts of businesses rely on us to be ignorant of what they're doing with the data until it's too late. Finally, we must ask ourselves whether or not this is a good value. Verkada's business model seems to rely on a massive upcharge for ongoing provision of services. Don't pay, then Verkada bricks the installed hardware, rendering it useless. There's no opportunity to switch vendors or bring the technology in-house, and installation costs are then sunk. So what we're essentially being asked to do is commit the money to then lock ourselves into a service, drawing down our own capital fund every year in the process of doing so. Does it cost $15,000 every year to operate 4 new cameras? Clearly not. A little bit of electricity and internet bandwidth is not anywhere near that costly. So where does that leave us? We're talking about spending city dollars on a massively overpriced service from a company with an incredibly shady track record, and for what seems to be likely very minimal returns on investment. If we do really want to go down this road, there's a far more cost-effective alternative, though, that will provide benefits to the city without nearly the level of concern. Publicly accessible webcams. We install a handful around the city and push them out to the internet, which is a service many other municipalities provide. And this accomplishes the goals laid out to the extent that cameras can't even accomplish those goals, while providing useful services to the entire city of Barre by allowing residents themselves to monitor things like traffic and weather conditions, flooding, or any other activities they might find interesting. Best of all, though, from my initial research at least, it appears that this costs something like 1/10 of what Verkada is attempting to charge for this, even for a premium level of service. To be totally clear, I'm not sure that we should do this either without more thorough consultations with the city, but this seems like a far more reasonable compromise if we do feel that cameras will provide a level of security, rather than rushing into business with a shady corporation to implement a surveillance program over a slight uptick in quality of life crimes that those cameras will likely have a marginal impact on at best. I would also add that it does feel inappropriate to execute this contract until such a time as we do have a finalized policy for the department as well. But I've said long enough. Thank you for allowing me to take up so much of your time.
Thank you. Cassidy, I should have come to you first because you had your question earlier, and I thought it would be more appropriate at this point in the meeting, so.
That was Ginger. It was Ginger's question, I'm sorry.
That was Ginger Club.
Oh, that was Ginger, sorry. And her hand isn't up. So Danielle, we'll go to you. And then
Great, can you
folks in
hear
the
me?
audience, I'll get to you in just a sec.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, thank you. So I'm here tonight to urge council to vote against installing the public surveillance cameras. So first, evidence doesn't support the investment. Studies consistently show that surveillance cameras have minimal impact on preventing crime, as we've, talked about tonight, especially without 24/7 monitoring or rapid response. And most footage is only used after something has already happened, even if it's useful, again, as we've verified tonight. So meanwhile, we have more immediate needs. Our sidewalks are cracked, our parks are dimly lit, public facilities are in disrepair. Cameras won't fix a broken sidewalk, they won't restore lighting, and they won't make our public spaces feel welcoming or safe. Spending thousands of dollars to watch these problems isn't progress, it's distraction. There are proven lower cost alternatives that work. In Philadelphia, researchers cleaned up vacant lots, just cleared trash and planted grass, and they saw gun violence drop by nearly 30%. In New York City, cleaning graffiti and fixing infrastructure in the subways helped drive crime down before major policing changes took effect. Well-maintained public spaces make people feel safe and actually reduce crime. So I really think Barre is not behind because we haven't installed cameras. We're thinking carefully. Cities like Portland, Santa Clara County, and others have rejected or removed cameras for the same reasons: cost, ineffectiveness, and long-term concerns about surveillance creep. And we're not without options. Our library at the public safety meeting had offered to host community events, programs, and safety workshops to build trust and connection. And I don't know if we've taken them up on that. And that's where we should be investing, not in hardware that watches but doesn't help. Once cameras are installed, they're hard to remove. They come with hidden costs, as Jeremy spoke so elegantly about, and no guaranteed benefit. So I'd like to think that we should fix what's broken first and invest what we know works, and that's clean, cared for, and well-used public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment? Mr. McSheffrey, you're gonna need your, gentlemen, your chiefs, just stay right there if you wouldn't mind.
It's been a minute since I've been here, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, that was a little bit enlightening and frightening at the same time. I thought once the Chiefs thing was over, it sounded like it was pretty well discussed and everybody agreed on it. So now we're just down to the price of them, which I guess I would recommend. Just a little background, I own the Cornerstone Restaurant here in town, in the process of purchasing Sidewalks Village, which houses Two Local, which I've owned for years. And we have helped the police dozens and dozens and dozens of times over the course of 13 years with our cameras. And it's not like some of the ones I'll put on social media of the knuckleheads pulling flowers and stuff, that's just because I'm a jerk and I want to embarrass them. Not that they've committed the crime of the century, but we've also done car accidents, people getting hit, violent fights that we don't talk about. That's not my business, but I take my time to show them the footage inside of our building and get them what they need. I guess when it comes to costs, I'm thinking, why don't you negotiate and say, well, we're going to do this for a year, try it for a year and see if it actually does do anything. But we do not have enough police, we know that, and it's not going to help fully stop crimes from happening. It could deter some, which if you deter one, it's worth it to me, but it's not going to deter all the crime, but it does give you the opportunity to not have to go do old-fashioned police work where you're knocking on doors and asking for witnesses. If you said there's an accident in front of Cornerstone, like at the time a car hit our building, within 10 minutes we knew who that was. Not 10 hours, and time is crucial. And not only that, but the amount of time that they can save by by having somebody report this immediately. There's a crash, somebody may have witnessed it or may not, but it's there, a hit and run, whatever it is. They log onto those cameras. They're not on the cameras to watch people pick their nose. They log onto the camera at that specific time, they find out what they need to find out, and they move on with their police work. It saves dozens and dozens or hundreds of hours of police time. I grew up in a family of police. My grandfather was the chief of police for Montpelier, Vermont, as I grew up. 2 uncles in the state police. Had a lot of police talk in my life, and it just makes no sense. So if it's just the money, if you've already passed and agreed on the first part, and you're just trying to agree on the money, I'm not going to be able to talk to you guys for an hour and a half sounding like that last guy, intellectual, smart, and witty. I've got to go home and change diapers. But we also have something that was implemented, a few years back. post opening our restaurants, and it's the 1% tax. And I'm not going to ask where every dollar of that goes because I really don't care. But the fact is that that has been something that was added to our guests that come into our businesses that we created with our minds and our money, and continue to get kicked in the face with floods and COVID and everything. And we're still here in the little town of Barre trying to pull this off. We're not here because we're getting rich, and we're not here because we don't give a shit. We care. And I think it's important that if something like that tax is added, why wouldn't that be an awesome thing to use for the security of our guests, our people that come to downtown? I find it way hard to believe that anyone up here, and I could be wrong, I'm not saying you do, but work at a business, own a business, or have a house that doesn't have a camera in it. We're not in the Wild West anymore. Like you're not taking a knife to a gunfight. And I know that the repetitive people, I've had my own talk with a couple of them, and they stay off my corner because I've just went out and talked to them. And have I talked to them? I get the crisis of drug problems and that we don't have enough resources for all that. I understand it, and I'd be the first one there saying, how can we help today? But the amount of time I've spent with these kids, they have no desire to change. They've been in and out of these places. They've been provided the services at no cost and in and out of them, and they keep manipulating the system to end up on the street, and somebody's going to get really, really hurt one of these times. They're not all just sweet kids that have a drug problem. They're willing to do anything for money, and I don't think it's fair to say that it's not a big deal if they come into our store and just take a pair of shoes or some groceries. Like, we work our asses off to be able to, on very low margins in most of our businesses, to be able to do what we do. And almost everyone that's a part of this community is, as far as businesses, gives back to this community in some way. I don't care if it's baseball teams, benefits, gift cards, it's nonstop. So if we come here once every 3 years and ask for one thing, one simple thing that's going to make us feel a little better, our guests, they're not your guests, your business isn't on Main Street, and we're not talking about putting cameras in toilets and locker rooms. Like, just, it's a simple thing. $15,000, I'll raise the money myself. If it doesn't get passed here tonight, and that's the only issue, I'll raise it myself. But I think that you'll find that money will be saved in just old school police work that you don't have to do. That, and I think a good representation is if you look at Berlin and how much they use social media and the public's help. They do it all the time. You cannot go on Facebook without seeing somebody from Walmart or one of those places, which I disagree and think Walmart should have their own security people, not always be using the resources in the town they're in. But nonetheless, they're saving so much time by allowing the public to be a part of it. And of course, you have the people that just want to talk and make stupid jokes about it all. But if you read between the lines, which I think Berlin does a nice job of, they find them one after another. So that's all I have. If it's a money issue, I'll pledge it. I'll raise it myself. And I think that you give it 1 year. And if all these conspiracy theories that we're talking about, the AI and facial recognition, and if people are that interested in coming into Barre, Vermont for that, and I don't know what to tell you, but not a concern of mine. I guess I'm too old school for that, but do good police work. We appreciate the guys. We know and gals. We know that they're down numbers, and recruiting doesn't get any easier. But I thank you for your service, and I thank all of you too. But that's all I got.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Anyone else from the audience before we move back to the screen? Danielle? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Come right up. Just a sec, Danielle. Sorry.
I'm Mike Richardson, and I own Sidewalk Village now, and Rich is in the process of buying the building from me. But I'm speaking from someone who, the philosophy of our building is to keep people safe and keep a clean building so that they can grow their businesses. And that's my main job as the building owner. And so when I actually brought this particular item up at the safety forum meeting, it wasn't just me speaking. My whole community in our building had come up with, the idea of cameras. We have them in our building and they work, but we need to do more of it because there's areas that we can't monitor. But to kind of go off what Rich said is I think at that meeting, I also said, I think if you talk to business building owners, we'd be willing to chip in too, because I've spent a good portion of what you're talking about for the cameras this year just in buying stuff for the building that people have either smashed the door or stuff that I've just had to foot out the bill myself because it would just be hearsay if I said it was this individual or that individual because we didn't actually see it on one of our cameras. We didn't have the coverage because it was outside. So I think at the end of the day, again, if we're not willing to spend the money, then maybe reach out, and I think maybe business owners will be willing to help out. Because this is really common sense, and it's keep our people, and I'm responsible for 8 businesses and 8 people, their lives. And they said this is something that would really make them feel a lot better to come into our building. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I lose Danielle? Oh, Danielle, did you put your hand?
She was done, yeah.
Oh, okay, so she's gone. Ellen Kay?
Yeah, hi, Ellen Kay here, Barre City. I thought I knew what I was going to say until I listened to the last couple of speakers. I guess, you know, one question that I would need to have resolved before I could support something like this is what problem does this solve? Who does it solve it for? And how does it solve it? And I'm not convinced of any of those things. And I just heard business people saying this is pretty much exclusively for business people, and I have a big problem with that. We're living in a time where due process is getting thrown into the garbage, that people are presumed guilty instead of presumed innocent until proven guilty, that people are willing to live in a surveillance culture is frankly chilling for me. And, you know, this crazy radical who lived a few hundred years ago, Benjamin Franklin, has a quote that I think would be important to consider right about now, which is that those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. We are living in a time where the federal government is taking people off the street, is denying due process. It's a frightening time. I do not want our city to go willingly into that kind of living. And as for those Berlin Facebook posts, I find them to be an invasion of people's privacy, of people's due process, and it is almost always desperately poor people who are surviving by stealing. That's who we're going after here, folks. And yes, Sonia's comments were right on. And no, of course, we're not going to solve that tonight. I find that to be quite condescending, actually. We're not solving that tonight, but I have not heard an argument about why cameras will solve this problem. And I do hear an argument that this is being pushed by the business community, for the business community. And I cannot support more surveillance. So I hope you will consider this. And Jeremy, thank you for doing all of that research. Danielle, thank you for doing all of that research. That's what needs to be done when taking a decision like this.
Anyway, yes? Thank you.
Hi, Shannon Alexander, only representing myself tonight. I grew up in Barre. On the streets of Barre in downtown, I was assaulted twice as a teenager. I was very fortunate that things didn't transpire worse than they had. As an adult, I lived in New York City like Nicholas. I was never in fear for my well-being in New York like I was in Barre. And I'm not saying that Barre's worse than any other place, but the presence of people and surveillance in New York gave me a sense of safety. I don't feel like I think we're going to perpetuate a problem in Barre unless we provide a sense of safety in Barre. And I think surveillance will assist with that. In addition, as an adult, I've had varying degrees of stalkers, and I've always felt safer knowing I was under surveillance by cameras. so it's not just a business issue. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica Reel?
Sure. Following Shannon, I grew up in Montpelier and went to New York, and I felt safer in Barre than I did in New York. Because even though New York had surveillance, I felt safer in Barre knowing that I did not have surveillance. Because in New York, even though there was surveillance, I knew my people in Barre. But I digress. I work in a secure building, and people know where the cameras are, and they know exactly where they can escape from the cameras. So even though cameras are here to keep us safe, they do not. So people can escape the cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Raylene Meunier. I have a business on Main Street, but it's in a building full of apartments, and I manage those apartments, and we have security all through the building. And I think it's just that, it's security. It's not going to fix anything. It's a security. It's basically, I call it a hug if you want to, I don't care, but that's what it is. It's security. And it's also, recently, I've shared some of the camera footage like Rich did. We've had people defecating in the entranceway, smoking and leaving smoking materials, cigars. What if the building catches fire? Who's going to get blamed for that? Is it going to be me? Is it going to be one of the tenants? It's security in knowing that here's the information that you can not only give the police, but you can give your tenants and you can give your insurance company. And I feel the same way even for the city. That, and I know I share my information with you all, and I know that they're doing the best they can. I watch them come through our parking lot several times a week, checking on things, doing the best that they can, but they can't be there every second. And so if there's some sort of information that I can give them that they can't get, I'm hoping that I can do that. And I'm hoping that cameras also provide that security to everyone in the community. And saying that it's just about the business, it is. We need people to come down to Barre and go into businesses. We need people to frequent restaurants and stores. And if they're afraid to come down here, then what is this place going to be like? What are we going to do if everybody just slowly goes out of business because nobody wants to be down here anymore? And so we say we're going to provide this one little blanket for you, and that's going to maybe make you feel a little safer to come down here, enjoy yourself, spend your money, then it's worth it, in my mind.
Thank you. Cassidy Gale?
Hello again. I have a few comments just on what's transpired since I've last commented. We've seen data tonight that says both our communities are experiencing an increase in crime, but we've also seen data saying that these communities have also been using this surveillance technology long-term. I think that clarifying that data and information would be quite important before Barre City chooses to pull the trigger on this. Yes, maybe $15,000 per year doesn't seem like very much money, but like Nick pointed out, we don't have a social services department, and $15,000 can go extremely far in a city whose impoverished rate is 34%. I don't think saying $15,000 doesn't go very far is an appropriate comment in a city like this. I would also like to commend the recommendation of People's Health and Wellness Clinic for pointing the cameras away from that door, because people seeking treatment do deserve privacy. However, residents of Berry City and visitors of Berry City also deserve privacy. So do people who deserve treatment or need treatment who are not seeking it. My final comment, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the mayor's lack of decorum in responding to Councilor Spalding is sincerely disappointing. That's it. Thank you.
Right on. Mr.
That's
Nicholson.
very insulting as well to me. Thanks.
Mark Nicholson?
Thank you for the time. I'd just like to speak out in favor of the cameras. It's just one of the tools, and it works for solving crimes. I think what Rich went over that nicely. As far as Councilor Spalding, yes, we need to feed the poor, and yes, we need to do these other programs, but this is one small tool. And maybe, in fact, the webcams or something that could be done cheaper, if that's the concern. But I just would like to speak out in favor of the cameras. They do help to solve crime, if nothing else. And they're not for the businesses as much as for the patrons. People going into the Opera House, people going into the restaurants. It's for all of them, all the citizens of our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Tina Ruth here. And I'm going to piggyback on one comment of Shannon's. For anyone that's ever been stalked, you'd appreciate public cameras. If you've ever experienced that over a number of years, you'd appreciate that the police would see stuff that's going on. I'd like to respond to the public webcams. That would give the ex-wife a way to find the ex-husband, because everything's public. Might be cheaper, but everybody can see everything. If you have people out there that want to do harm to other people, they're watching everything all the time. As far as businesses, without businesses, we don't have a community. We don't have people coming into the town. If anybody cares to go on YouTube and watch how they ruined my hometown in Burlington, YouTube, 2.5 million views, see how Burlington's looking right now without their businesses. I don't dare go there. I haven't been there in years, except to Costco. We had a bar in town. That's the first time, not in New York City, for the multiple times I've been there. And I used to always say that, how safe I felt when I went to New York City. And it's such a big city. Never in New York City was I approached and intimidated into giving money to an aggressive panhandler like I have been in Barre. So I totally disagree with taking $15,000 and giving it to the people that keep harassing us. It's ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have another comment, Mark, or did you still have it? Oh, didn't put your hand down. No worries. Vern, did you have a comment or a question?
Hi, thank you. Yes. I'm not going to say I'm for or against the cameras, because I'd just like to share, people had a lot of comments that were wide. And one of the things that I brought up was an activity that Rotary sponsored a few years ago, and that was downtown walking. And I suggest that one of the things we do as a community going forward is to encourage downtown walking. And when people are downtown walking, it reduces the crime all over the city. And the other thing, I've put out a call to people who would like to come and loiter with me in the park. And I thought that if a lot of us folks who don't usually go down to the park, go down and loiter, that would improve the quality of loitering. And I'm not trying to be glib here, but trying to just say that when we engage in our community, like the store owners, are having people shopping, but when we use public spaces and we are seen using our public spaces, they become safer. So I invite people to use our public spaces together. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, my name is Don Ruth here. I can't let my wife upstage me. I think what everybody's missing here is not that the cameras are gonna solve our crime problem. The cameras are gonna help 99.9% of the people who pay taxes, who shop, who aren't out trying to hurt and panhandle other people. It's security. I mean, like my wife said, when that a camera's watching, you're gonna be more apt to want to be out, because even if it's a false premonition that you're being safe, it actually is. It's in your mind. So will it help curb the problem of crime or all the stuff that seems to happen? I think it will to a certain extent. What matters most is after you apprehend these people, that the judges don't let them out the next day. Okay, they're gonna be incarcerated, so they don't keep coming back for repeat offenses. But I think the bigger picture for 15 grand is you get 99% of the people who are shopping, business people who come into Barre. It's for their protection more than just to, eradicate the crime problem. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Danielle?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to bring it back to one of the comments that Jeremy made. I think folks maybe thought the things that Jeremy are talking about was out of touch, but they're really not. So for my work, I have to do these security mentor trainings, and so it's basically how to protect your information. And the comments that Jeremy made about the company that we're thinking about buying those video cameras from, that could be a real issue. Like he was saying, when you have these breaches and then they basically hold your information hostage and end up costing you a ridiculous amount of money. And one of the reasons why we have these trainings so often at work is because the amount of money that it ends up costing cities, public organizations, private organizations when there are these data breaches. So if you do anything, I would really make sure that you research that company and find a different company that's more trustworthy. I think that's really important. We shouldn't overlook that and just think that Jeremy's speaking jargon. It's a very real thing, and we should be protecting against that. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Galford?
Hi, I was just trying to remember some of the conversations that happened back when the police body cam issue was being discussed a few years ago. And I know it's a different issue, but I think one of the things that came up in that discussion is sort of it can actually be used to exonerate people too, or to help defend someone. And I'm just curious, I don't know much about this, but I wonder if camera footage is ever used to exonerate people or to make sure someone isn't falsely accused. And if so, then that could be a positive benefit of it in terms of due process, but I just don't know if the cameras have that kind of quality or if that plays out. And so I guess I'm wondering about that broadly, and I'm also wondering if there's anything we've learned from the police body cams the last few years that's relevant.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, the only thing I would like to add that has...
Would you state your name for the record?
John Lyons.
Thank you.
The only thing I would like to add that hasn't been discussed is this is not limited to Barre. I see cars coming from out of state, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut, parked at TD Bank with nefarious activity going on. So, and I see it quite a bit. This is not a one-time, two-time. This happens a decent amount of time. So it's not limited to the usual people here in Barre. It's out of state as well. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you for your time.
Ginger Cloud?
Thanks. I was just following up because it sounded like need to be a reminder of the question that I had was just, is there currently a lack of evidence happening as far as for police not being able to prosecute or do their work that they are so good at doing? So I'm just kind of curious about that. Is this because I keep hearing evidence, it could be used as evidence. So is that a main issue right now with our ability to have the public safety do their work right now? Thank you.
Thank you.
The phrase "a picture's worth 1,000 words." When you have that type of evidence in front of a judge and in front of a jury, think of especially like in domestic violence cases, we look for body camera footage and photographs. We use those in those instances. It would be the same here. It's not that there's a lack of evidence, just the more evidence you have, the better off you are in the judicial system. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate, as a fellow business owner, we have cameras as well, and we definitely do, share footage as appropriate for crimes. And certainly our downtown is well monitored already by businesses.
Councilor Guston?
I wonder if the chief could speak to Amy Galford's question. I thought it was an interesting one about what lessons we have learned from the use of the body-worn cameras, and whether you see circumstances in which, I won't say necessarily exonerate, but in circumstances in which this footage could clarify the circumstances that happened.
The body-worn cameras that we've had now for, I guess, 2 years, I think, going on, have been a great addition, not only in the evidence aspect. It has been used to exonerate officers. It's been used to exonerate individuals when an officer's at a scene and they have their body camera running, and say, just for instance, you're in a he said, she said situation, or a he said situation, depending on what the circumstances are. I'm just speaking along the lines of domestic, but there's many other issues that take place that when the body camera's there, it allows officers to go back, and it allows them to write a better report, to understand what's said. It's more efficient because we can take statements on the body camera now and just swear the people in under the pains and penalties of perjury on video, as opposed to having them give a written statement. So it's been a really good program. Does that answer?
I think so. So I guess I would ask a follow-up question, which is that, do you see any of the lessons that you've learned with that program potentially applying to the street cameras?
I think the street cameras would be a great addition and enhance our work as well.
Jeremy?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate that as a general philosophical matter, say what you want about cameras. This is a dangerous company to choose to work with. This is a dangerous company to choose to work with.
Yeah, you made
They
that.
were just fined $3 million. They just had access to their camera feeds accessed by hackers. They just had sensitive data accessed by hackers. They had employees drinking and doing drugs at work and accessing cameras without authorization. Whatever you feel
Jeremy,
about
you've
what
made all
Tom-
those points already.
Yeah, Tom, you repeat yourself all the fucking time too. Whatever you want to say
Okay,
about
mute him. He's gone. Kick him out. Bye, Jeremy. Have a great day with your trust fund. Yes, Councilor.
Did you look at any other vendors?
Specifically, I did not know.
Do you know if there are other vendors?
Yes, there are several other vendors, I believe.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can't hear you because there's so much chatter.
There are several other vendors, yes.
Okay. And you showed that the presentation showed that there are some communities who have this system. Have they had any problems with
They have not.
have you,
I had done some research with other communities about what systems they use and do they use systems. Specifically, Springfield, Vermont had used Verkada for a long time at intersections and did not have any issues.
okay. Do you know anything about the concerns that Mr.
I'm not aware of them.
Skirwin? Okay. Because that's a concern for me, just because it's our data and I wouldn't want
if I
our
could
data.
make a reminder.
What kind of cruisers do we have?
Fords.
Fords. Do you know how many lawsuits Ford is currently involved in for consumer negligence?
I imagine
A lot
there's.
more than $3 million.
I'm imagine that they have lawsuits, but I'm not familiar.
And yet we
with
still buy Fords. Yes.
No, just a comment that we've had Verkada for many years, which was the camera out front, and we've never had an issue with it either ourselves. So we do have experience with them. And we, like I said, none of the concerns that were raised tonight have been experienced by the city.
Pete?
Yeah, I Council, I'm Mayor. I'd like to say that I'm in favor of these cameras. My name is Peter Coleman. We utilize 9 in our building. And not only just for enforcement and gathering of evidence for if there are issues that happen, I think it can be used for aid, whether supporting staff if sometimes I watch parts of the building, I'm like, oh, that person needs a hand, or sometimes I watch and if they're short-staffed, I can help out. But also if some people are ailing in the parking lot or in the building, and with an increase in the marginalized members of our community, I think these cameras can provide support for them. So if someone is sick or ODing, you can be there to help. And it's not just about enforcement. And so I think they're there for both aid and enforcement. And it's a quick, easy way to gather data. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Caitlin?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
All right, cool. I would just like to follow up about the unfortunate examples of stalking, which is very real and very scary and terrifying. And it's a horrible thing, and I feel bad for anyone who has to experience that. But I just want to make a statement saying that public surveillance generally does not stop stalkers. The reasons being stalking is usually personal and targeted. Most stalking happens across private and semi-private spaces, homes, workspaces, social media, etc., not in the public squares where most surveillance cameras are installed. Surveillance is passive. Cameras record, but they don't intervene unless a stalker is caught in the act on camera and someone happens to be watching live, which is rare. Surveillance provides no immediate protection. Stalkers adapt. If someone knows there are cameras, they may simply shift their behavior, avoiding certain areas or switching to digital or indirect forms of stalking, like messages, fake accounts, or tracking devices. Most stalking cases are addressed through other tools: restraining orders, police investigations, phone GPS tracking laws, community support, or advocacy. False sense of security. Victims may feel safer because cameras are present, but that safety is rarely real, especially if there's no monitoring footage in real time or enforcing boundaries. Things that do help, though, is more street lighting, well-maintained busy public spaces, clear sight lines and emergency call boxes, education and response training for community members, local victim advocacy programs. Those things are far more effective than just cameras in the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
If I may just follow up on that, I wonder if the manager and the chief, we could put a pin on a date at a future meeting to discuss lighting improvements and replacements that you've said are underway. There may be a logical future point at which they're finished, or we can discuss more.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. We're, like I said, we started with the I guess, surveys, what I would call it, that the police department did, and then once those are fixed, we're expanding to talking to Green Mountain Power about how we can expand lighting, starting here in Merchants Row. But we're happy to have a broader conversation about it.
Thank you.
So, see what the two of you stirred up? And that's what we're reacting to, not a conservative member of the council, not a conservative mayor. What we're reacting to is something that two of you, independent of the city council, doing your jobs, responding to public safety concerns. This is what you came up with, and this is what you brought to the council. Just like when you brought conduct in parks and public places to the council. That couldn't get 4 votes of support. Council voted not to spend money on it, so I will, and I will bring it back. Because good managers respond when their employees come to them and say, this is a tool that I need to do my job. It may not make things perfect, but in my opinion, it will make things better. And even for all of these arguments that we've heard that, well, you're not going to monitor these 24/7. No, but you can monitor them at certain times of the day. So a dispatcher could, in fact, if there was an area, I remember years ago when Miranda used to work at the movie theater, and I would go down to pick her up, and I always told her, wait inside. And Barre was safe, and Barre's relatively safe now. We've seen a little bit of an uptick, and we've seen some things that obviously we need to deal with. But I remember pulling up, and probably 8 times out of 10, there'd be a police officer parked within eyesight of the different businesses that were closing, where young people were leaving their part-time jobs and, getting a ride. And the police officers knew that, and they would park because they knew when there would be people leaving businesses. So I think about that with the cameras. I think that not only in terms of identifying, witnesses, victims, perpetrators, but also keeping an eye on things when there are times when you should be. And you can have dispatch doing that. So the way I look at this, and the reason I will be supporting this, is because this is what our police chief and our city manager came up with to improve conditions in our city. And I'm going to give them the tools that they ask for. So with that, council, a motion would be in order, if anyone is so inclined.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded, so the motion is to approve the purchase of the security cameras. I know you're a smart enough man to have heard all of the concerns, and I suspect that you'll be doing a little bit extra due diligence before you pull the trigger on this purchase. Of course. Okay, well, that's what I figured. You're a smart guy. So council, is there any other discussion before we get going? Yes.
Could I ask one more question of the chief? Is there a way for us are there any metrics that we can use to measure the efficacy of the cameras? Like over the next, once they get put in, is there a way for us for a follow-up report to the council that, we've been able to use it to apprehend someone who, just so we can have some sense of what are we getting for the cameras that are in the community?
Absolutely, I can do that.
Okay, any other questions? Hold on, I've got, okay, Councilor Stockwell, sorry about that. Oh, there you are. Okay, there's a lot of squares on that screen. Okay, council, everyone understands the motion. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed?
Nay.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. So, council, we will move on to upcoming business. As I said, I have engaged the city attorney, and council didn't want to spend the money on the conduct in parks and public spaces ordinance, so I have engaged the city attorney on my own, and we'll be bringing that before the council, likely at the next council meeting. So obviously, I'll make sure you get a copy of that well in advance. Is there anything else that anyone would like to see on an upcoming council agenda?
Are we, what? I'm so sorry. Are we already there?
What? Oh, I'm sorry. I've done that.
was very optimistic.
I've done that twice to you. And
Yeah.
I apologize.
But we've got a few more people
Yes.
before me still.
Huh?
We've
I
got a few
know.
more.
We've got the GMT update. I was getting right out of here.
There's the moment. You're up, Christian.
I think I'll be relatively quick. I gave you a brief update a couple meetings back. Yep.
I'm sorry, could I just interrupt? Are we not doing the GMT update?
We are.
You're the GMT update.
Yes. Christian
He's just
Meyer.
usually here with a different hat.
Okay, because I was like, you're not from GMT.
I better introduce myself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hi, Christian Meyer, Director of Central Vermont Regional Planning
Thank you.
Commission, Washington County Representative to
Okay.
Board of Commissioners at Green Mountain Transit. Just wanted to come out and update the council, as I am with the other councils of our municipalities who have substantial service from Green Mountain Transit, that as part of a larger cost-saving effort, the legislature directed Green Mountain Transit to study the possibility of transferring their service to other transit service providers in the state. One of the findings that came out of that study is that there could be substantial savings from doing so. What would that mean? Well, it means that money can then be used throughout the state to improve transit services across the network and across the networks, really. The study came up with the recommendation that Tri-Valley Transit, which works across Addison County and parts of Orange County and Windsor County, I guess, would be the most logical service provider to accept the service. Their board is reviewed it, is putting forward requirements and negotiating with VTrans to kind of hash that out. Certainly if it starts to go forward, I think it would be important for all of our municipal governing bodies to get a chance to meet the leadership of Tri-Valley Transit, understand who would be overseeing this service that affects so many of your constituents. With that, I don't really need to say any more than I have to, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Where do you see the trajectory going? Because the financial ramifications, the ridership, it doesn't seem, we experience the cuts in service. I understand they're necessary, but I keep looking for something to give me hope.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling a bit, and I'm an optimistic guy.
It's not a hopeful time. We talked a lot about the fiscal cliff in our commission meetings. It has hit Chittenden County first. They are what's called an urban service, which doesn't really affect us all that much, but means a lot to the folks at Federal Transit Administration and how they provide funding. As a result, Chittenden County has cut its service substantially to find, close to $2 million in savings they've essentially needed to realize. That's a lot of trips. So far, our rural services in Vermont have been okay. Making this change could help stay those cuts further. If we can drop our cost of providing a trip in central Vermont substantially, it means we can maintain the trips we have or potentially offer new trips where they're needed, although I don't want to get too optimistic about that. Federal Transit Agency is never well-funded relative to federal highways, even though it's a critical service for many of us.
Yes.
I wonder if I might, and this may be a little bit afield, and I understand if you don't have the numbers, but ridership in central Vermont, I know that it's been up and down. I ride the bus when my car isn't in commission. I wonder if you could speak to the current use and ridership and how it could be impacted for better or for worse by these proposed changes.
The current proposal is to maintain all the same services. So the Agency of Transportation puts out their application that a service provider then responds to. But it's for a package of services. So Tri-Valley Transit would be picking up the exact same services that Green Mountain Transit has provided traditionally. So besides the bumps that might go along with that transition, there's obviously a lot of administration, learning the way things work. There would be a transition period that would probably have some bumps, and our riders would probably feel that a little bit. Once they're up and running, it should be the service as it is today. Montpelier is changing its service. They've had the MyRide service, which is a door-to-door service essentially, that served all the way up to the hospital. The hospital route is being returned to a fixed route, and the MyRide will now be a smaller zone just in the downtown area because it was found not to be working on that, and it was basically found to be too expensive. So there are no changes like that linked to this transfer in service, and I don't have the ridership numbers. I'm happy, send me an email. I'm happy to track those down.
Oh, well, I'd be curious more than anything
staff
else.
of GMT, because they do track those numbers and do have them available.
Thank you.
Could I follow up?
Sure, of course.
With regards to the question that Councilor Guston asked, can we get ridership numbers and how it has changed over, let's say, the last, I'm guessing COVID was probably when it all sort of imploded?
COVID was bad. So I mentioned the fiscal cliff. We were headed towards that in 2019. COVID actually pushed that off 3 years because of the big flow of federal funding.
Okay.
Ridership was higher in 2000. I'm getting too far out over my skis. I think it was slightly higher in 2019. It hasn't fully recovered to the pre-COVID levels. But I'll get all those numbers.
Yeah,
They do track
made a
that
note.
data closely. A lot of it's available freely through the National Transit Database. But I can get those numbers for their individual routes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I will email you and I'll share that with council, and I'm, just as a preview, I'll also be asking if it's possible to parse out what what the ridership is relative to Barre City and the rest of central Vermont. And I don't know if that's possible, but just a heads up, I'll put that in my email. I wonder also if you might speak to how the launch of the Gopher program that Capstone began, how that is intersecting with this particular service.
Dispatch was being, for Gopher, sorry, I'll jump right to the Gopher question. The data, I'm going to leave it to the GMT staff.
But
They
just giving you a heads up that I'm going to put that in my email.
Great. And I'll make sure it gets to you.
Thank you.
With the Gopher service, I really can't speak to it. I don't know enough. GMT was handling dispatch for them. But they really are different animals. They do try to complement each other informally. There's nothing. They are working next to each other rather than as one.
Vern, did you have a question or a comment?
Hi, I did, thank you. I have somebody that I've been helping out with some health issues, and we've been trying to set up a bus ride just for them to get from where they live on North Main Street into Montpelier to their primary care. And each time we set something up, and one time up to the hospital, we use the SASH, which is the support for people living in their homes, or like all of the Barre housing has a SASH coordinator and a SASH nurse to help people with transitions. Made appointments for this person to have rides, and the rides end up being on the bus, and then the bus doesn't stop. And they live in a major bus stop, and the bus just goes right by while they're waiting out, and they're back where the bus is supposed to pick them up. So this is a obvious communication and dispatch issue. So if you have any suggestions, I'd really like to help get this person to be able to use the bus more often. They used to use the bus to go to work all the time before they were ill. And now it's me having to wait around for an emergency ride, or somebody else, or them failing to make an appointment they've been waiting for 2 months. So if you have any thoughts about how we can improve that, or if you're talking to people in this transition to Tri-Valley, I think more people would use our bus and would or even arrange for scheduled stops if we knew that we could rely on it. But we're stopping, we're not trying anymore because it fails us so often. So that's just a thought going forward, and any thoughts you have about how to make that work better, I'm happy to hear them. Thank you.
I'm going to assume that you've been in touch with Green Mountain Transit. Again,
Yes.
Okay. I'd be happy to forward the concern on. If you go through the Green Mountain Transit website, I'm listed there with a Green Mountain Transit email, or as a Central Vermont resident, you're welcome to contact me through Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission, where my email would also be published on either of those websites. And again, my name is Christian Meyer. I'm happy to make sure you're speaking to the folks who would help get those rides lined up.
Thank you.
And as a follow-up plug, one of the things that makes transit affordable and workable in any of our districts across the state are the volunteer drivers who are eligible for a stipend equivalent to the federal gas mileage rate, 70 cents a mile. The more volunteers that are out there working on behalf of the transit provider, the cheaper we can provide service and the more service that we can provide. So for anyone listening.
And how would they respond if somebody did want to, go ahead, hey, you
Plug
started to
away.
plug it, plug away.
I should know GMT's website better, but I'm sure there's contact information through the website, ridegmt.com.
Ridegmt.com, and then they can get information on volunteering.
Volunteering to be a bus driver.
Volunteering to be a driver.
Okay.
Slightly
Not a bus
different.
driver.
I was like,
You
what?
go with your own vehicle, and you would usually be taking someone maybe to a medical appointment,
Okay.
someone who doesn't have critical needs or is able to use,
Okay.
doesn't have a wheelchair per se. You don't have to have special equipment.
Okay.
It's not ADA accessible.
Okay.
And because it's a stipend, it doesn't count against as income. So it's often a way to earn a little extra without having to declare it.
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and you make 67 cents a mile.
70 cents a mile right now.
What is it?
70 cents a mile.
70.
Yep.
Oh, that's right, it went up in 2.5.
Yep.
So drive somebody 10 miles, you get $7. So for somebody looking to earn a few extra dollars, drive someone 30 miles.
And I think what a lot of people really enjoy the social element of it, getting to chat with some folks for a couple hours a day.
Awesome. Any other
Mayor?
questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
No,
Burn Groves?
I just wanted to say that before GMT was doing that, RSVP, or Volunteer Program, used to do that as a service to the community. And we had many, many drivers. And I think that our Peter Anthony is a driver for GMT. And he takes people places. It also takes kids to school who may need special transportation. So it's a terrific program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, council? Yes, Mr. Roos.
I was just curious, is that?
You have to come up to the microphone.
Sorry. Chris and I were just chatting in the back there. Eddie Bruce. And thanks for your presentation. I didn't know that. I'm just curious if that was the same as ride share, or is that ride share? People volunteering to give people a ride.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And just.
No, it's not.
Oh, thank you. And then, I'm involved in a lot of different things, and so, with the home share, where people who are looking for some place to live, and there's people that have room for them to live, and we donated, and so we heard the whole story about that when we did the community giving event at the American Legion, and a lot of questions came up about the vetting for that. You can't just go into somebody's home, or somebody's not going to just take somebody into their home. So I like the idea of just volunteering to give somebody a ride. Is there any vetting procedure for that? I mean, I don't want, you don't want to jump in the car with just anybody.
I would have to look into the details. My suspicion, knowing the system generally, is that those who qualify for the rides do go through an application process. Those who are the drivers, I don't know what application process they go through.
I would imagine it'd be something if they're going to get the 70 cent per mile stipend, that they must have to fill out an application. So I was just curious.
I think you're right. I don't know for sure.
Thank you. Council, anything else?
Just thank you for your service.
Thank you
Yeah.
for hanging in there all evening with us.
I love
Sure
working
that.
with you guys. I don't always want to be in your chair. And I'll come back.
Good to
with
see
more
you.
updates.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, council, we're at item 8E on your agenda. This is to approve the elevation applications. Mr. Manager?
Thanks, Mayor. There's a memo in your packet with a lot of the background. We've had a fair number of conversations about this. The last place we'd left it is we had sort of identified 4 properties. The council instructed us to go talk to those owners to see if they had some funds that could support it so we could extend the project further. Long story short, we're actually coming back to you with 3 properties now, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is, first of all the properties said that they just didn't have resources to throw at this, and they're probably going to be out money anyway to do some of the finishing touches after the elevations are done. So that question was answered pretty quickly and decisively by the property owners we reached out to. The second piece was one of the property owners dropped out. So that's what we got down to the 3. Janet, who's been sort of my partner in this work, we started thinking, well, do we find a new 4th? And what happened is, frankly, that our colleagues in Montpelier are ahead of us on this, because they only had, I think, a handful of applications. And after learning about their experience, anytime we extended to an additional property, it decreased the total grant amount. So at 4 properties, our grant amount would have gone down from $300,000 to $225,000. What we learned from Montpelier is that they're going to be cutting it pretty darn close right at that $300,000 level. So in mine and Janet estimations, we would be taking a pretty big gamble if we added a 4th property and being able to complete the full elevation under the $300,000 maximum grant amount that the state has set. So we are back to you with three. These three properties that are, the addresses are listed in the memo, were in those top four that I mentioned. Obviously, the fourth one dropped out. But we feel pretty confident that these are good choices. We have spoken preliminarily with A&R for this grant. A&R has to give approval to proceed, and they gave us a nod of consent on these three. So we feel very confident that when the formal application goes in, they'll be okay to proceed. So anyway, tonight what I'm asking for is approval to formally submit and start the grant process with VEM for these three properties listed in the memo. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Questions, folks? Yes.
Couple of questions. Sorry. First, I read that big, long article about challenges that Montpelier is having with the
Yes.
program, or more accurately, challenges Montpelier residents are having with their program. And I trust you, and I would just say I hope we're learning lessons from the way that has not gone as everyone had hoped. So that's just in the nature of a comment. The question is, well, it's more of a comment. I would hope that we are maintaining contact with the people further down the list, because we are looking at additional funding opportunities in the future. And it still horrifies me, but this probably still remains less expensive than building new houses. So if we're able to find funding to continue to work with people lower down the list, maybe not this program, but other programs, I would hope that we are staying in touch with the rest of that list. And last, an actual question, what if we do come in under budget?
Yeah, so I think if we do, it probably wouldn't be to the extent of doing any full elevations. So I think we've been very fortunate to be able to watch somebody else go through this process first. This is a brand-new program from the state, so everyone's sort of learning on the fly. And the fact that we're able to see where Montpelier's bids are coming in, and the traps they've had to navigate is helping us. I'm based on what we've learned, if there is any funding that's not expended, it's not going to add up to what an elevation would cost. I don't know what the impact of that is at this point. I don't know if that's money that's returned to the state or not. I feel very confident in saying that we wouldn't be leaving anybody on the table for an elevation based on just underfunding. So I feel very confident saying that. Hopefully what will happen is maybe that it will get repooled at the state level, and it could be reissued to other communities. So I know one of the benefit, I don't want to speak too much about Montpelier. I believe I think they got the same amount we did, which was 900,000. I believe they only had 3 applications, if not 3, just, only a handful beyond that. So I don't want to say too much, but they didn't have to go through the prioritization process that we did, where we had, over a dozen. So some of this money also went to other communities in the state. There's a chance, I think, that hopefully what might happen is if there is underspending here, underspending in Montpelier, underspending somewhere else, maybe it'll get pooled, and hopefully we would be one of those communities that might get another full grant down the road. But that's speculation on my part at this point. I can tell you pretty confident, like I said, though, that I don't think we'd be leaving an elevation on the table.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Second, please. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Council will move on to your item 8G on your agenda, which is the flood resiliency plan, approve the stormwater pipe study. Excuse me.
Councilor Gusson, I can just mention one thing which I neglected to put in my packet memo, and I apologize for that, Council. The materials you had in the packet for this are the proposal we got back from SLR, which is also doing our hydrology study. So as you might recall, they scoped out both the hydrology and the stormwater study at the same time. So that's the only material in the packet, as in addition to a timeline. I spoke to Roy, knowing that this item would be on the agenda, and he did provide a project timeline that's also in the packet. What I neglected to provide for you was a funding source, which is kind of an important thing. I had thought about it, though, if you believe that. We're proposing to fund this out of Special Projects Fund. There's about a $495,000 balance in that fund. And so we would plan to use that as a first step. If there's, for whatever reason, a need to fill in from any other fund, we would tap into capital improvement but primarily looking to fund this out of special projects at this point. So just wanted you to have that context as you make your decision, because I think it's an important data point.
And if I could jump in first, just
Yeah, of course.
to give context to this, we do this every council meeting, so you know that this is part of the flood resiliency plan. This is 1.2 on the flood resiliency plan, which says the city should systematically analyze all culverts and stormwater flow across the city for capacity relative to expected flow to ensure that they remain clear during flash flood events. And I want to make sure this goal is also in the 2020 city plan. So we're doubling down on the importance of doing a better job at analyzing our stormwater system. And the manager and I had also talked a little bit that the council has a quote for $95,565 to carry out this work, but I would ask, as part of my presentation of this item, that the council actually authorize $100,000, around $100,000, just in case.
Yes.
At the top, it says Berlin Street discharge. What does that mean? Because it says Barre Stormwater Pipe Study and then Berlin Street discharge.
Going back to the packet.
I think it's more than that, isn't it? It's more than just.
I don't know why it
it's-
says that.
That's why I was,
Honest with you.
I was a bit confused as why it was
There is a
$95,000.
discharge. There is a
Yeah.
discharge at Berlin
No, I
Street,
feel
but
like
this
we could
isn't
go and
that.
just watch it for less than $95,000. No, this is a comprehensive
Yes.
Okay.
system study.
Okay. And then if the manager would entertain a question, the special projects fund you said was, how much was in it?
495,000.
And that's the balance after that's before before we allocate money for BADC?
Yes, that's why I mentioned if we would, that would leave 95,000 in here if that allocation is made.
400.
Yes, if the 400 is made, that would leave 95,000 here. And that's why I mentioned that if we needed a balance, we would go to capital improvement.
Okay.
Probably to find that balance, if we needed it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Peter Anthony.
Yes, Peter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out, as a person who lives at the bottom of the Barre Bowl, that getting our arms around what our capabilities are and what the expected future capabilities should be in the area of handling stormwater is of inestimable importance. There's no question that future development will occur at higher elevations around Barre, and yet we will be the recipient. So having a reliable scope, if you will, of expectation is worth every penny and then some. Thank you.
Thank you. And doubly thank you, Peter, because that reminds me, can the study improve, the capability of the system now so that if we do have development occurring around us that would propose to tie into our storm system, we could ask the developer to pay for upgrades?
So I think I can actually answer that. I think I can answer that based on their planned work, based on their schedule of work, which includes a storm sewer model setup. So they would be this isn't just a point in time necessarily. This is an actual modeling of the system, much in the same way that we're getting an actual modeling of the hydrology study. Like they're building a computer I don't know, I'm not a computer person, a model of the system. So we
Right.
could, in theory, and we're going to have to, because we're proposing to continue to add buildings to the system and so on. So we could, in theory, add plugins and things like that. That's my understanding.
Councilor Stockwell?
Thank you. I was interested in what ways does this differ from previous stormwater studies? Because there was one done in 2018, I think, mentioned in the hazard mitigation plan. So is this simply, does it need to be updated every so often because conditions change, or is this a dramatically different kind of study? And that may be a Brian question or city manager question.
Yeah, I think it's probably more of a Brian question. I know this is going to be, it's good to have it updated. I think it's good to have something that's, as Councilor Gusting was saying, that can be reactive and responsive in the future as well. So I think it's a tool we don't have in our tool belt right now. Councilor Stockwell.
Thank you.
Peter, did you have another question or comment?
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I think it's essential that we have that as a database and a technique for prognostication. But as the city has, I think, occasionally participated in surrounding development projects, whether it's by a matter of right to be at the table in a 250 proceeding or at a town or Berlin planning board. I think it would behoove the council, once it has that capacity study and prognostication, to make it city policy to be, if you will, in attendance in any of those proceedings within our watershed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spaulding?
It was my understanding that this was a more thorough study than any stormwater, like they were actually going to go under, because we hadn't been able to go
Go
under
those pipes, yeah.
those underground pipes, right?
Yeah, this covers that too.
Okay, thank you.
Amy Galford?
Yeah, I was just thinking similar to what Councilor Stockwell said. That 2018 study came up with some prioritized best management practices or sites to do work. And they did some modeling behind that. So it'd be great if whatever they're doing can build on that, or if there's some implications from the study they do that say, okay, this has changed since 2018. And so does it change those BMPs? Because if we end up with two separate tools and they have different recommendations, it's sort of like, how do we reconcile those? Or if we have the modeling tool will be probably more detailed, but really knowing whether it changes the recommendations and whether to go back to those, I think would be helpful.
Absolutely. Okay, council, a motion would be in, I'm sorry, are there any other questions? If not, a motion would be in order.
So moved.
Gotta do it.
I didn't know if I could move my own.
Moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And those opposed, motion carries. Okay, council, now we're at upcoming business. Is there anything that any councilor would like to see on an upcoming agenda? Talked a little bit about what will be a change to, or a proposed change to Chapter 2025, conduct in parks and public spaces. You'll likely see that at the next council meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Stockwell, did you have something you'd like to see on an upcoming agenda?
Yes, but I can wait my turn until you're finished.
Yeah.
You're done? Okay, so there are two questions, more questions than things that I have some definite plan for. One is that why does Center Street flood?
I'm sorry.
No, why does Center Street flood? Even in a heavy rain, even if the river doesn't flood, Center Street tends to flood. And I think there are probably a number of reasons. I could speculate, but I don't know, so I won't. But I would like to know if someone does know why Center Street floods. And the other thing, pardon?
Sam, is that at the corner of Center and George Street?
It's all that section that goes from Blackwell, well, a little down Blackwell. And if you turn to Center Street, there's like half a block, and then that area tends to flood, especially on the side where Bella Vance is. So that's something I'm just curious. I'd like to know if we can find out more about that. And residents obviously are concerned. They would like that to stop.
That's definitely a Brian question.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. And I have a second question, which is, I was just looking at the 2000 flood hazard mitigation plan. And in it, it talks about the danger of landslides, which, since that time we have experienced. But one of the areas it talks about is Dagmont and Berlin Street as an area at risk of having a landslide. So this is pure self-interest. I have a friend on Dagmont and I live below that. So I would like to know if that's a current, do we have more information about the likelihood? Because it mentioned West Patterson, which obviously has already happened. So an update on that. And that'll be it for me.
Thank you. Yes.
I was hoping that we could, I know you all, I appreciate that you have reassured me about the BOR and Civic Center, but I was wondering if we could get financials. So that,
Financials?
yes, just so we could see, how much money they bring in, how much money they're charged, how many, just some data around
absolutely.
the BOR and Civic Center.
Yep.
And we had also talked about, Counselor Guston had recommended having a downtown merchant forum. Yeah, do you want to speak to that?
I do, if that's all right. Which is that I actually wrote in my to-do list for this weekend to scope that out a little bit further. I had proposed a date that it turns out I have to be out of town on that date. So I'm going to hope to really look for a date in early to mid-June for that. And I will scope it out and I'll make sure that you're included on my sort of thoughts and ideas for that.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because we had a number of downtown merchants here today, and I appreciated all of their feedback, and I loved seeing them here, and then it reminded me that we wanted to have a conversation with them, so.
Yep. And it literally, actually, I think maybe around that, I had made a note in my to-do list to work on that this weekend a little bit further.
And then finally, I wonder if we could, earlier in the evening, Mayor, we had talked about having a separate meeting to talk about how we could help the members of our community who are struggling. And that may be more of a roundtable meeting, because I would imagine like Washington County Mental Health might want to be invited, and Good Samaritan Haven, and the committee that we have on homelessness and the unhoused. And so I just wonder if we could sit down and have a conversation about how we aren't able to help directly, but how can we advocate for more funding from the legislature, or how can we apply for grants, or whatever it might be. So I just throw it out there that maybe we could put that on a future agenda, or have a separate night to have a conversation about that.
Could
Thank you.
I suggest that those are big questions.
I
So
recognize that.
rather than do it on a Tuesday evening,
Yeah.
maybe we do it on a Saturday morning. Maybe we do it, on a Sunday. They're just, honestly, they're big questions. And if you even think about the sheer number of service providers, Washington County Mental Health, Good Samaritan, start going down the list.
Yep.
Even if we gave each of them 15 minutes, it would be, 2 to 3 hours. 2 to 3 hours well spent,
Right.
but it'd be 2 to 3 hours. So, I think I see some benefit. There's a lot of conversations we need to have. We need to have a follow-up on the public safety forum. We told folks that we would do that. We haven't. In my opinion, we just haven't focused on the north end and what the vision is, or is there any vision? But we've told folks that, well, we should have a vision for the north end. So I'd like to see a couple of meetings where, now that the weather's getting nicer, maybe the Mootwa would let us use their parking lot, and we could literally take a bunch of chairs down to the Mootwa parking lot and sit with people and just talk about what their vision is and start to push a plan forward. We have sort of this rough idea, but we don't really have a plan. And with some of the flood mitigation and recovery funds that are going to be coming to Washington County, we really need to start having a plan, because the funds are significant, and there's a significant portion of them, as you all know, that are coming to Washington County and specifically Barre City. So you'll see that on upcoming agendas. Sam, did you have something else? Oh.
Yes, I did, but I think Peter
Oh,
Anthony
sure.
was before me.
Oh, who was?
Peter.
Oh, Peter? Did you have something else?
Yeah, just when you assemble the list of participants in a what can we do discussion, please don't neglect to invite the Barre area clergy. They, in my estimation, have been very central and crucial in filling gaps for sheltering, warming, meals, all that kind of stuff. It isn't just the state, if you will, chartered agencies. There's a lot of private charities who have literally filled the gaps. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, Councilor Stockwell?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that when I said earlier that I thought we should convene people to address the needs of the 8 people, I didn't mean that the police were not referring them to services. I know the police are doing an excellent job referring people to services, but I meant getting those people, similar to Councillor Spaulding's idea, to get those people together, to get Washington County at the table with the police and with perhaps the Family Center and the Justice Center to say, do you have other ideas about how we can address this issue? Just to expand the conversation with people who might have other methods of dealing with individuals and might have other resources. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
If I may just.
Yes.
One last piece, which is that, I know I've said this previous council meetings, but we are coming up on the 6 months of the flood plan, which means that I am going to be presenting soon the sort of what I envision as a process for updating it. Certainly would welcome council feedback on that process, because we are checking things off pretty quickly, so surprisingly enough. So we will need ideas for what to move forward, ideas for what to put into future projects, and have that conversation. So I will be presenting that. The manager and I will get together on the agenda, because we had a couple of other ideas for flood resiliency updates, but at a meeting in May, I would expect that.
Thank you. Okay, anything else, council? Then we'll move on to roundtable. Councilor Stockwell?
I'll pass.
Councilor Guston?
So this one's been on my mind, just to say that I am not a religious person, and if my family tradition is Methodist, so I'm not the least bit Catholic, but I have been listening to a lot of the coverage of the passing of Pope Francis and reflecting and trying to think very hard about how much I admire that he took one of the most powerful positions, frankly, in the history of the last 2,000 years, and used that to expand on values of humility and kindness, and using that power to help those who were less fortunate. I heard while I was coming over to council this evening that he declined to be interred in the Basilica at St. Peter's and chose instead to be interred in a portion of Rome that is known as an immigrant community, and that he personally identified deeply as the child of immigrants who had fled a repressive regime. And I think that the way he used that power should be an example. So I've been thinking about that as someone who is lucky enough to have some position of privilege in my community. So.
Thank you. Councilor Bergeron. Councilor Spaulding.
So I was able to join the kickoff for the master plan meeting last week, and I got to come to one of the workshops and also came to the closing presentation, and I look forward to the final, what did they call it? Wish list or wish book or something, I can't remember. But anyway, I think they had some really fabulous ideas, and I'm really excited about seeing them. But I bring it up because for as many difficulties as we have, and as much as our discussion can get tense, and I think there are a lot of good things about Barre. And when we were doing the maps, there were so many green dots on the maps because there are so many places that everybody loves in Barre. And I just wanted to remind us all that we're all coming from a place of love for this community and trying to do our best in moving it forward. So thank you all for being here and participating in that, and for all the people that were here before. And we may not always agree, but I think we're all trying to move it in the same direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was there as well. I mean, you kind of wish more people turned out, but that's okay. I mean, because the people who did turn out had just a ton of energy and a ton of ideas. I thought Janet, by the way, did an absolutely incredible job. She really did a good job. So she does a lot in the city. She works hard. Yeah, Jeremy Sparrow Wynn's not my fan club anymore, so, I'm crushed. And there's that. And let's see what else I have. Finally had the chance, now the tax season's over, to meet with my board of directors. And she said the city needs the building more than you do. So she told me to sign it and give it to you, and that's that.
Thank you. Made me very happy.
Well, you signed your contract, so it's the very least I could do.
My
Okay.
favorite signed document from the day.
Mayor, was it the haircut that was the final?
Definitely, yeah.
No, he got the haircut.
He's got that
After, it was an element of surprise. The haircut, I've never saw the haircut until tonight.
You would know Opie Taylor.
Contract was done before the haircut, but it didn't hurt. Council, okay, with all of that, motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Thank you, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.